All right, we are here. Let me see if I can hide this. There we go. Let's hide this. Perfect. Larry, how are you?
Great. Good evening, Jim.
Oh my gosh, what a nightmare trying to get online tonight.
This is a grassroots production. Jim and I have been the only ones working on this, and honestly, it's really been Jim because technically I serve no advantage to this partnership of the Jim and Larry team, but we're coming to you because we feel passionate about sharing these stories, and the entire production is just us. So
yeah, Larry, you want to share a little of the story of Revitalize?
Yeah, so Revitalize began really in the mid-1990s here in St. Louis, and it was under the name of Metropolis Wine Club, which was a social club designed to invite people into the city of St. Louis to experience some of the renaissance and rebirth that was going on in downtown St. Louis. Around the year 2000, Metropolis merged and began a new incarnation as Revitalize St. Louis. And it had a slightly broader reach, but its main purpose was still to introduce folks to the benefits of city living in St. Louis and to have social events in significantly historic buildings that have been renovated, showcasing specific neighborhoods, encouraging and providing resources for folks that wanted to rehab their homes, and a wide variety of services for just people interested in city living. And that went on for about 15, 16 years. Jim and I were introduced to Revitalize when we had a business called NextCore, which was a co-working and collaborative workspace. And Revitalize came to us seeing if they could have a home out of NextCore, which we were thrilled because we knew it had a rich and long history in St. Louis. And a year later, Revitalize was having several challenges and they were considering folding. And Jim and I stepped up. We said, we joined the board, and together with several of the previous board members, we were able to save Revitalize and have a pretty prosperous year in 2019. Then, of course, in 2020, the pandemic hit and everything changed. I mean, we lost our business. Revitalize, which was based on social events and collaborative events in the city, nearly collapsed, and we had a difference in opinions on the board of how to take it forward, and all the things that I'm sure you're familiar with, challenges, et cetera. But the bottom line was we persevered and we made some changes and we rebirthed Revitalize with a broader reach, renamed it a Revitalized World. And we took it beyond the city of St. Louis, and we've opened up several chapters recently from Kansas City to Los Angeles to Chicago, Melbourne, Australia. Really, we're just expanding the reach, and the purpose of Revitalize has changed, and that it is showcasing change makers within each of these communities. And how we're defining the change makers are people who are passionate about creating change, and they're doing it not with their pocketbooks, but with their spirit and their passion and their vision. These are the unsung heroes. These are the community in the grassroots trenches, people who are just so inspired to create a change that they are doing such that. We are also showcasing various businesses that have a maybe socially responsible businesses, several nonprofits, just anyone who is defined from that spirit, passion, and collaborative take that Revitalize has branched out to. So we're showcasing several tonight. We've got featuring individuals from Mexico to Chicago to out Washington, D.C. area, and of course, St. Louis, which is the original home of Revitalize. So that's a brief background on the history. It's been challenging. It's been fun. It's been filled with ups and downs.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here, Larry. There we go. Like when you say grassroots, you mean grassroots. Like I'm figuring this whole thing out as we go. So yeah, I want to share with everybody. We were originally going to put this on as Revitalize. We agreed to a budget for it, and Larry and I felt so inspired by the people that we talked to that we have taken on the project. completely. We have other board members, they were involved, but we really wanted this to be a showcase of what you could do when you put your heart and soul into it. And you mentioned pocketbooks. So let me just say, we are actively seeking donations on behalf of Revitalize St. Louis and all the chapters. Sorry, I got to get used to saying Revitalize instead of Revitalize with the city attached to it. So we're looking for donations to help us continue to tell the stories. And tonight, when you make a donation to Revitalize, you can actually select one of the change makers that impacted you, and a portion of that donation will go to support them. You can select multiple. You can select all of them if you like. And both Larry and I have decided that we are going to match the donations dollar for dollar up to $5,000. So once we reach $5,000 in total donations, we'll know there's at least $10,000 going to share the stories and support these incredible change makers. So Larry, I think we should get into the initiative of the evening and get started with the whole thing. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's get our intro going. And here we go. Our first person here tonight. Larry, are you paying attention? We're all looking down. Larry and I are manning the comments as they come in, so that's what's going on right now. Just wanted to talk about this lady for just a minute. She's originally from Canada, moved to the United States, has now lived in Mexico. Now lives in Mexico. She's a North American of all descriptions, and we became acquainted with her about 10 years ago. And she has an organization that is really supporting an incredible cause down in Guatemala. So they help build and fund a young girls orphanage and now a young men's orphanage. And she's just an incredible person. Larry, what do you have to say about Kim Melia?
Yeah, I was really, just inspired the first time I heard her speak about 10 years ago. She's an entrepreneur. She comes from a challenging background, and she's really used her background to, pivot herself. She wasn't a victim of her conditions and circumstances. She rose above it, and she is a very generous lady, and she gives back a lot, and you'll hear her story in just a second.
Yeah, so I'm going to cue us up here. She actually, when we talked to her, she was one of the people, just everybody has been so humble throughout this entire process and grateful to be nominated. And she was no different. We know her, her ex-husband and her ex-husband's brother, Steve and Mike, are actively involved in this foundation. And they're just doing amazing things really throughout Guatemala and have inspired people all over the world. Let's listen to the story of Kim Melia. Okay, we are back and we're here with Kim Melia. Hello, Kim.
Hola.
Hola from Mexico, Lake Chapala.
Yeah.
So I've known. I don't think the Kim audio Melia is working for some reason. 10 years, maybe almost 10 years. Larry, can you hear the audio? And just wanted to invite you.
Yes.
You can hear her speaking. I've followed you and the things that you've done for years, and yes, it's just you are one of the defining things that made us want to do this, because you did seek out something where you could have a big impact, and you did. I watched you do it. So can you share a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you've done?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all. And I love what you're doing. There is so much good in the world today, right? That we need to tell so many more people. So I love this Changemaker channel. I think it's just really cool what you're doing. And for me, well, my background is I'm from Canada originally. I call myself a true North American now because I'm from Canada. I lived in the States for about 17 years, got my American citizenship, moved to Mexico 3 years ago. So I say I'm a true North American. But my background really is I worked for corporate Canada just for a few years. Hated it, got shy of that, said I need something else, and became an entrepreneur for the last 22 years, if not more. And then as I was doing though, Jim, as I was growing up in corporate, I decided that I wanted to do some volunteer work. My parents were big into volunteer work. They just have always said to, help your community out. So I used to work for the suicide awareness hotline. And I worked there on a part-time basis, volunteering a couple times a week, which was pretty cool. And I did some other things. And so when I moved to United States, I started to, I had a sales force as an entrepreneur, and we wanted to give back also, because I think there's one thing about becoming an entrepreneur, making money, but and living a great lifestyle, but it's not all about you. It's all about giving back, not just to your community, but I think globally too, which is pretty cool. So with that being said, I wanted to do something. So we did the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the Boys and Girls Club. We did lots of stuff with them for many years. And then we started our own nonprofit. We started it as a foundation first for the first few years, and then we started it as a nonprofit. And we built a girls' orphanage in Guatemala. We're a big part in the boys' orphanage that had been existing there for over 20 years. And then we built a girls' orphanage because that's what they wanted. They wanted the brothers and sisters not to be separated, since they were already separated from their parents and their aunts and uncles and whoever else. That wouldn't it be nice if they had an opportunity to at least live near each other. And so I'm happy to say we just celebrated our 8th anniversary. I just went to Guatemala to visit the kids. During COVID times, 9 months, I did not go to Guatemala, which was the longest time in 10 years I hadn't been there. So I'm making up some time right now because I'm going again in a month. So every 5 weeks I've gone now. And so that's just a little bit about my background, kind of how I got started and why I got started in not just nonprofits, but in some charity and community work.
Yeah. So why an orphanage and why Guatemala? Was there something calling you to do that? Was there a pull internally, or was there some outside factor that made you decide to go that route?
Well, let me just go back a tiny bit really quickly. Basically, I was abandoned, I guess, as you could say. I mean, I have a great mother, but I had an abusive father for the first 3 years of my life. And my mom left him, but he pretty much never spoke to us at all since then, which is fine. And so I've always wanted to help abandoned, troubled, abused children. And so did my business partners, who I'm partnered with in the nonprofit, as well as my own business. And we really wanted to help children. And so we were looking for a way where 90% or more of the money goes to the children. Now, I love all these other nonprofits, nothing against them, but I wanted to make sure most of the money went to the kids, not to salaries. And that's why we started our foundation, which turned into a nonprofit. And how Guatemala, it's kind of weird. I honestly didn't even know where Guatemala was. And then my business partner was on an airplane, met somebody, had a bunch of pulseras, which is bracelets, and said, "Why are you wearing so many pulseras?" And he said, "Because I support an orphanage in Guatemala." From that day forward is what happened. He wrote a check for $1,000 and said, "Show me what you can do." He sent him some pictures with kids with new clothes, new, school supplies, and also all cool things. But we said, well, anybody can just prove pictures. Let's go fly out there and see if it's really for real, if this is what we want to do. And we did. We flew out there. My business partner, our niece and nephew, filmed it, and happy to say we've been, partners with them for now over 11 years. And it was really one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, is to be part of this, because I really feel like I'm following angels in their footsteps, because the people who own the orphanages, Karen and Estuardo, are serious angels. And if I could be as a little bit of good as they are in this world, I can put my head to rest and feel good about what I do too.
Now I have to ask, was that Mike or Steve?
On the airplane, it was Mike.
I thought I knew that story.
Steve was the one that flew with me to Guatemala, though.
I could just hear Mike, "Show me what you can do."
Right. Exactly.
So, that's amazing. Well, and so a little bit stepping back, that's a big undertaking, and not everybody is in a position where they can write $1,000 check or get on an airplane. So what would your advice be to those that are wanting to do something, but maybe don't have the funds or the resources like you guys had available at the time? How can someone else just take some action?
Well, do what I did at the very beginning, right? The very beginning of my story of really doing any kind of charity work or community work is to be a volunteer, is to find something that you're interested in, you know, whatever that could be. It could be the homeless shelter. It could be a woman's shelter. It could be, I also did like fingerprints and footprints. It was called Child Find, where in case a child was lost, this is how we find them. So just different things, like go and search what suits you, what's your purpose, what's your passion, and go into that and start, because it's not about money. It's about time. And you might say, well, I have the money. I have no time. I have no time. I have money. And it, you know, I think that loving and caring and showing that you have even a half an hour or an hour a week to give will do you more good than probably the person or the people that you're actually doing it for. It's something about who we are as human spirit. Just when we give, we feel so much better when we can make somebody else smile and make their life a little bit easier. So I would just say, just get started, find something that you think you're passionate about, and eventually it'll go just kind of like mine if you continue on that journey. I mean, really, I had no idea that we were gonna fly to Guatemala, that we'd be part of an orphanage, then we build an orphanage, and then it's a big responsibility to build one. It's a whole nother thing to maintain it. So we maintain it monthly too. So it's a lot.
Yeah. What obstacles or challenges did you encounter? I mean, going from someone else's organization to starting your own, there's obviously hiccups along the way. So what are some of the challenges that you encountered, and how did you overcome those?
Well, I think, you know, we took baby steps, and we made sure that we weren't overwhelmed, and we made sure that we were, every time there was a challenge though, Jim, we made sure that we went back to why we're doing this. We would go back and look at the pictures of the kids. We would watch videos. We would remember that there's a big purpose behind it. It's not just about what we're doing or what we're challenged with. But there are challenges, just starting a nonprofit, making sure you file everything properly. Trust me, there's little tiny things that at one time we weren't a nonprofit anymore because we couldn't fill out this one little thing. It's like, so having a board of directors has been a challenge because it's all volunteers. I don't pay my staff at all. We pay one person to help out with social media and do a few other things, and that's it. There's no salaries going on. I don't get a salary. My partners don't get a salary, none of us. And so that's the challenge, having the board, keeping a board of directors, making sure that everybody's doing what they said they were going to do. Second thing is having an ambassadors club if you want one, and making sure that that's running okay. But just the fundraising, I mean, take away that, because that's all volunteer work, which is awesome. And not being the person to be responsible for everything. It takes a team effort, because if something happened to me, I want to make sure that this continues. So, and also, fundraising, that's been a challenge. But I think it's a challenge for every nonprofit. So being creative and think of different ways. We do bingo online since COVID. We've done a Vegas fundraiser that you can have a ticket for Vegas and all these great things, but you don't have to take it till the end of 2022. We do a Super Bowl fundraiser. Even if people don't like Super Bowl, they love to be part of a charity. So we think of different ways. And I think if you're constantly thinking of different ways, creating different ways of doing fundraisers, then you'll find that will be good for you. But we also have a program called the Hogar Heroes, which people pay in monthly. And I think that's our biggest thing that I would suggest if anybody's doing something like we're doing. It's nice to have people pay monthly, and that way you have a surplus every single month that you know that's coming in. So hopefully that helps. But there's challenges, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yes. Let's talk real quick about impact, and I'm going a little long, so I apologize, but I want to get this. So how many girls have come through the orphanage? What are just some of the things that would make people go, wow, that's a huge impact?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I don't think people really think about it. So you can tell you've been doing work like this. There are 30 girls there now, but over 150 girls in 8 years have gone through that orphanage. And there's usually 75 boys that are in their orphanage. There's 60 right now, but I don't know the number on that one because I don't have all the stats, but I would imagine, Jim, thousands of boys, because that's been around for 20 years.
That's amazing. Well, Kim, I don't know that you ever mentioned the name of your organization. Could you do that real quickly, and how people reach out to you? Sure.
It's called workplaylove.org. We work a little, play a lot, and love even more. So workplaylove.org, you can reach out and just get us on social media, get us on our website. We do trips there all the time, like 3 or 4 times a year. So if you want to come and spend some time with us for a couple days, please reach out to me. Actually, we're having a trip in August and one in November this year too. So thanks so much for having us and sharing a little bit about our journey.
Yes, and if you want to make a donation, we are accepting donations for the Changemakers event, and there will be a link there to make sure that that donation goes to Work, Play, Love. So we will have that directly. If you look below, you should see it on the scrolling ticker. But thank you so much, Kim, for being on and for all the work that you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate you.
All righty. Take care. Thanks, guys. Stay tuned. More Changemakers up next.
Great story. I mean, I love what Kim said regarding if you just have, a half hour. Okay, well, if you have a half hour to give a month or 5 hours to give a month, whatever you can give, just give. There's, so many people that I've come across that said, when I achieve this, I will give back this. If everybody could just give a little bit of whatever they could give right now, together we would achieve more. So I love that about her story and about how she, took what happened to her when she was 3 and is now helping kids to not feel that abandonment.
In the meantime, let's hear about retired football coach and all-around amazing human being. All right, everybody, we are back and we are live this time with Art Hill. Hello, Art. How are you?
Doing fine.
So I received several nominations for you. Actually, 4 gentlemen gave me your name as a legend in the football community in St. Louis, but really beyond that, more of a how you handled, treated, dealt with, motivated, and pushed kids to be the most that they could be, which to me is really a definition of what this Changemakers series is all about. So if you could, before we go into any of that, can you share a little bit about who you are, your name, your background, how long you coached, that kind of stuff?
Well, my name is Art Hill. My family knows me as Jack Hill. That's a family nickname. So I'm either Jack or Art. I taught for 45 years and I coached for 55 years. I coached football for 55 years. I coached baseball for 25. Wrestling for 9, basketball for 10, track for 15. That's my coaching resume. And
Gotcha. Now I did see that you're officially a member of the Hall of Fame. Is it high school football or what is that accolade?
Well, I'm a member of the Missouri Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame and the Metropolitan Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame and the St. Louis Metropolitan Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame.
Is that all? I'm just kidding. That's a lot. That's a lot, Art.
Well, I knew the right people, and they nominated me.
That's great. Well, and that was the same thing that happened with me when I reached out for. I reached out to people of influence that I know and said, "Who do you know that's made a difference in the lives of kids and the lives of their community?" And so that's really where I want to take this conversation. You were instrumental in a lot of kids getting to go to school and getting the training that they needed and getting the help that they needed. And I'm just curious, what inspired you to take such personal interest in really go after that aspect with the kids that you were coaching, teaching, working with?
Well, I grew up in a family of, I had 3 brothers and 2 sisters. My parents, my mother and father were the 2 most outstanding Christian people I've ever known. And we grew up in that atmosphere. And what we were taught was that we had a place on this earth to do things for other people. And when I started to college, I started in engineering, but after one semester, I realized I did not want to be an engineer. And I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and I remembered my high school coach and one of my high school social studies teachers and the impact they had on my life. And that was when I started thinking that I wanted to be a teacher and a coach and make a difference in people's lives. And so I changed my major, and the rest is history.
Wow. When I was talking to you before we came on the air, I think it was a couple of days ago, I asked you how many kids you thought you had an impact on, and you couldn't even fathom a number. And I guess over 55 years of coaching, teaching, doing, it would be hard to, I guess, quantify that. But I'd like to ask you, because so many people have a desire to do something, but they wait until they're prepared. And, I'll give to charity when I have enough to give to charity. I'll volunteer my time when I have an extra 20 hours that I can volunteer. And that wasn't your style from what I've heard. You went in and you got in the trenches right away. Could you speak to that for a minute?
Well, I just I felt that there was a need for me to do something, and as the opportunities opened up for me, it seemed like the more I did, the more opportunities that were opened up to me, and I really felt that I was doing something that I was meant to do, and I felt that I was making a difference. I'm not sure the kids realized it at the time, but one of the good things about having been in teaching and coaching for a long time is that the people I dealt with, after they've matured, I've had, I don't know how many people come back and thank me for the help that I gave them along the road. And that that's not why I did it. I did it not to get the praise, but it's kind of nice to get it. And the kids, gosh, I couldn't even begin to tell you the number of kids. I've never tried to sit down and count it out, but I'm sure it is way up there. And I hope that I have influenced them in a positive way and given them something to help them along their life's way.
Well, that's great, Art. There's a lot of things that were said about you, very positive, before we came on the air here, including how humble you are. And I've been able to pick up on that. So what you did, I know, had an impact on hundreds, if not thousands, of children. You were instrumental in helping expand and grow the Fellowship of Christian Athletes presence here in the St. Louis area, which is where we're originating this particular broadcast from. And I know that those values and the things that you were involved in had a big impact on people. So, Art, I want to give you the last 30 seconds, and I want to ask you to kind of speak to this. When people see this, they may be inspired to do something that, maybe they were waiting, like we talked about. So what is your advice for someone that is looking to do something, but maybe doesn't know where to start?
Well, I tell you, I don't know how many of my former athletes who have gone into business or other areas of life who came to me and after a few years working and asked me how to go about becoming a teacher and a coach because they felt that that's what they wanted to do. And my advice to them is, number one, be sure that you want to do this. Number two, analyze why you want to do it. And then if things are right in those respects, then just go for it. You can't say I'm going to do this 5 years from now. You just if you want to get into it, just jump in and do what's necessary to get yourself ready to do it, and then do it. And that's the way I have approached my life, and I can say that it's worked for me. My wife, if she were still around, would tell you that I was a somewhat impetuous person. In that regard, I scared her a little bit at times when I jumped into things, but she was always very supportive. That's one of the things that I am very thankful for. I had a wife for 54 years who was the most wonderful person in the world and highly supportive of everything I did. And she was just a Jew. She was an angel.
Well, I'm sure she's looking down on you now and proud of what you've done and proud of the life that you've lived. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Art, coach, teacher, friend, awesome human being. Thanks for being on here.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel very humble about being able to do this, and I don't know who told you, other than Tom Beauchamp. I don't know who else recommended me, but it just goes to show that you can fool a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. I think you can only fool people for a little while, and then they see the good or they see the truth. And with you, it's all good. Mr. Hill, thank you so much. Guys, stay with us. We got more Changemakers coming up after this. We got a lot to cover, a lot more people to feature. Art Hill, have a great rest of your day, sir. Thanks for being on Changemakers21.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What a beautiful person. Like his authenticity came through, and his kindness came through, and just his comments about wanting to make a difference. And I can only imagine, how many kids' lives he's made a difference. And I'd like to take a moment, if it's okay, Jim, just to explain why we are doing this.
Yeah, I think it's okay because I've gotten that question. What do you guys do? Why are you involved? And I personally felt called to do it. So yeah, please take it away.
Great. So Jim and I have both had our share of struggles. I've been homeless. I've had addictions. I've had all sorts of issues, led a life that many people would not wish on, maybe even their enemy. But for me, it served me really well because I've been on the streets, and I've had wealth, I've lost it, I've rebuilt it. And one of the things that we wanted to do at the Jim and Larry team was to give back and to let people know that wherever they are in their life is just like a moment in time. It's where you are now, but where you are now has really very little effect on where you'll be tomorrow unless you buy into the story of where you are now. So what we try to teach and what we're trying to demonstrate through these Changemakers tonight is that no matter where you come from or where you're past, that you can take that and you can grow from it. We have a couple of concepts at the Jim and Larry team called Mastering the Spin, the Shifted Reality, and the Art of the Pivot that all encourage, teach, facilitate, and try to help people not take the part of their life that they don't want to take with them to tomorrow. That you can begin to change where you are by changing your mindset. And that's the first thing that you want to change, is that mindset. And we hope, Jim and Larry, our organization, we hope that we'll be able to change some folks' mindset tonight about their community through sharing stories of these amazing people that are doing good and where they've come from and how they're giving back to the community. So with that, we can move on to our next honoree, unless Jim, you have anything to add to that?
Hardship or some level of struggle in their life. It's just the reality of it. And our stories are no different. When Brown says the same way goes on everybody, when you change that, I think not blowing up the lake is when you up, it's exactly sale. So I set a sale for a new better day. Hopefully these stories will inspire, and next story that we're going to share, I know it inspired me. It's a gentleman by the name of Danny Foster, who made a significant impact on the world around him and people in his community during COVID. And what's his story? All right, Jim Shelby back with you. I've got Denny Foster. Hi, Denny. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm really excited to be here with you today to have a chance to share a little bit about what you've done and what your organization did to help so many people during a time when people really needed some help. But before we do that, can you share with our audience just who you are, what your name and where you're from and all that good stuff?
Yeah. I'm Denny Foster. I'm from Festus, Missouri. I own Main and Mill Brewing Company, which is a brew pub, restaurant and brewery down the road on Festus Main Street. So, and just recently in the last year and a half, we've expanded to a second location, Main and Mill Barrel Works, which is also in Festus, 2 blocks down the road on Main Street as well. So keeping me busy.
Yeah. Now, during the pandemic, I think more than anyone, restaurants were impacted. Small business in general was like just decimated by what was going on and some of the challenges and restrictions uniquely that small business owners faced. But you were no different. You got shut down, right?
Yeah, we had to close our restaurant on I think March 13th, I think, right around that date. So all of our nobody comes sit down or anything like that. So we effectively had to change our business model within about 8 hours so we weren't actually full on closed during the time, because we went directly into curbside, adjusted our menu. Yeah, it was an interesting time to say the least. But yeah, we were closed inside for I think right at 100 days.
Wow. So I'm going to say something. This is not to offend anyone that may be listening, but lots of people got shut down, right? Nothing special about that. Unfortunately, a lot of people fell victim to what was going on, circumstances beyond their control. And most people did exactly what they needed to do. They buried their head, they focused on business, and they did what they needed to do to survive. But you did something different. You did that, of course, but you also made an impact in your community, which is why we are featuring you as a 2021 Changemaker. You did some things to make sure other people had what they needed and some stress was relieved. Can you share a little bit about that with our audience?
Yeah, so one thing that we had whenever you have to basically close your inside of your restaurant is you have a little bit more time to focus on things that are important to you, like within the community. So one thing that we did and that was we contacted the Developmental Disability Advocates, which is in Herculaneum, Missouri, but basically does things for the entire county and Jefferson County. So they they basically do everything they can to put those that are mentally and physically disabled in a position to succeed and feel fulfilled, and help the families make sure that they get what they need to take care of their family members. So we reached out to them and started donating meals to the families at that association. So the families would directly contact us, put in an order for a meal for their entire family, and we would get it done and make sure that they were able to pick it up in the time frame that fit them best. So we ended up donating around 850 meals to that association over the course of, I think, about two and a half months. We did it on a weekly basis. We did it just to make sure that those families had at least one night a week to where they didn't have to worry about getting the supplies, cooking dinner, when they were super busy and very stressed with the times that were going on. So just to make sure that everybody has a little bit more time together as a family is really important, especially with those that are already stressed out. So that was one of the avenues that we thought was very important for us in our community, was to make sure we did whatever we could to get involved and try to make a lot of people's lives at least a little bit better one day a week. So
and you did this with a broken leg.
Yeah. So we shut our restaurant down on a Wednesday. I think it was that Sunday. The Sunday after that, I broke my leg in half playing volleyball, trying to relieve stress for shutting down a restaurant and changing our business model. So that was another stressor, I guess, with all this, was the inability to move for I think it was about 3 or 4 months before I was really even able to put any weight on it. Pretty bad situation. But overall, try to make the best of it. Whenever you're not mobile, trying to operate a lot of the business stuff via phone and text, it did allow me to put a lot of time into how we can best utilize our resources to help others. And I feel like, it was not always easy to do that, especially when our business revenue dropped, precipitously from the time that we had to shut down. But again, it helped us, I think, as our business. As we wanted to help others, number one, but number two, when you help others, they help you. So, those people shared the word to what we were doing, and then people that we know had never come to Main and Mill Brewing Company were supporting us based on hearing it from somebody that was being helped by what we were doing. So,
what's your website then?
Our website?
Yes, sir.
www.mainandmill.com, and the and is spelled out.
Perfect. I'm putting that on the screen as we're going through here. Denny, I'm going to ask you a pretty straightforward question. People choose things that are important to them because they're important to them. Usually there's a trigger, or there's an association, or something that means something to them. Why did you choose the developmentally disabled as your place to step up and step in?
We have a couple of people at our restaurant that have family members that are disabled. And I've had history. I don't have, anybody in my family that would be considered disabled, but I've had friends and things like that have had people that in their family that, have special needs, and know how stressed that can make, obviously that person, but their entire family, whenever everybody, a lot of people lost their jobs and this sort of thing. Sure. But it's always something that I think is important, is to do whatever we can to relieve some of the stress on those that we already know before the COVID hit were impacted with a lot of daily stress that may not, anything we can do to help. And they were also seeing a lot of, from what I understand, whenever I talked with them initially, they were seeing a lot more people asking for help. It's not just that they're there to help those with, disabilities and their families, but there's a lot of people out there that have disabilities that weren't asking for that help, or their families weren't asking for help through this association. And when COVID hit, they had a lot more of that
requests. Got it.
Yeah, a lot more requests. So looking at that and seeing how there's anything we could do to help in any way we could, it just seemed like a really good fit.
Fantastic. Now, what would you say, Denny, to those people that are like, I don't have a restaurant, so I can't step up like you stepped up. But, people step up in different ways. So I'm curious what advice you would have for those that maybe heard your story today and feel inspired to do something. What would you say to them listening today?
Well, I know there's tons of ways to get involved. If it isn't just in an association like the Developmental Disabled Association, there's millions of ways, it seems like, in a community to do things that benefit not only the community in general, but the people that are around you on a daily basis that you may not have even met. There's a Main Street Association here in Festus that puts a lot of time and effort into trying to help others start new businesses, trying to help people, even if they just moved to Festus, that sort of thing, trying to put time into that, doing planters, making sure that we do donations of canned goods and that sort of thing. It's as easy as even just going down to your local small businesses and asking if there's any way that they know of a way that they could put their time or extra time into volunteering and helping others or helping their community. And I would venture to guess, as it is in our community, a lot of the small businesses would know exactly where to steer you, because small businesses are, by and large, actively trying to do what they can to help those in the community that support them and keep them in business. And so I would say that's usually your best bet, is to talk to your favorite local small businesses, retailers, restaurants, those sorts of things, and they're going to make sure that they'll tell you where your time would be best spent, usually on helping others or helping just the community at large.
Denny, thanks for taking the time out today. Congratulations. You're back open, second location going strong, I'm assuming. So all great things.
Yeah, we've been bouncing back pretty strong for quite a while now. And, fortunately we came through it, and really happy that we're seeing a lot of others start bouncing back as well. So it feels good to starting to see some sort of normalcy again. So
that's great. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in this interview with Denny Foster. And we're going to be back with more Changemakers right after this. Make sure you take down the website. It's in the ticker scrolling across the screen. Go out and see Denny and family. And stay tuned. More Changemakers coming up now.
Thanks, Jim.
Love that advice of going to seek out the small business owners. Never would have thought of that, but that's great. I mean, small business owners have had challenges, and they certainly know where you might lend a hand.
For sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Welcome back.
Yeah. So Kim Melia, thanks for the heads up via Facebook that I had hit the mute button. It's funny. They say the number one thing said in 2020 was you're on mute. And I've absolutely learned nothing from that lesson, apparently. So thanks for the heads up. And Larry, Denny's doing some amazing things out in Texas.
I'm looking forward to going down and visiting his restaurant.
Yeah. So what was your take? And I'll turn it over to you for a little bit on how he has applied the challenges, because that's a big thing, right? We all encounter struggles and challenges. And that's what I was saying before we went to the video. We all encounter these struggles and challenges, and some people sit back, and no offense to them, you deal with things how you deal with them, but some sit back and some take action. And Denny's one that took action. So I'll let you speak to that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, his words speak for himself, but again, and this is why we created Changemakers21. We just hope to inspire people that wherever you are, whatever conditions that you're facing, that you don't have to accept them. You can inspire people. You can dig in, and you can create something new for yourself. And hopefully the stories that you'll hear tonight, like Denny's stories, might give you some tips and insight and a little bit of maybe enthusiasm to create that change for you and create that change for your community.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. There's so many lessons in each one of these Changemaker stories that it really is amazing to hear and take note of what they had to go through to make all of this happen. So, and the same thing is true of our next Changemaker. He's been doing his thing for a while now. And during COVID, had some hiccups, some challenges, but went on a mission. His name is Stefan Self-Ruler West is what he goes by online. Larry, what do you want to say about Stefan? I know you've known him longer than me.
I first heard him speak a couple of years ago, and I was so inspired. I remember the room was full, and I was like in a doorway, just kind of peeking my head out. I could kind of half see him, but I could totally hear him. And that was my first experience with him, and I loved what he was saying. And at the end, you know, after everybody was gathering around him, I went up and I shook his hand, and that was the beginning of my relationship with him. So I know you're going to love to hear his story. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, if we're ready, let's just get to it. All right. Stefan, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Am I saying your name properly, by the way? I've talked to you a couple times over the last few years, and I just realized I didn't know that I made it right.
Stefan, but you know, Stefan will work, but you know, Stefan works too.
Okay, Stefan, got it. I'll get it right. I got to think about getting people's names right. Well, listen, I just wanted to say, first of all, congratulations. A lot of people sent us your name, and I already had you in the back of my mind about this event for the work that you're doing in the community. But we are here in support of an organization called Revitalize, and we're here to tell the story of those that are doing good in their community. And a lot of times this is around the people that have little to no fanfare around their mission. So we wanted to take a minute and highlight those change makers, those that are doing good. And I just want to give you a chance to share who you are for our audience that may not know you. Who is Stefan and what do you do?
Okay, so I go by Stefan Self-Ruler West online. I actually am, I like to say, co-founder to a internet challenge that is called the Black Wall Street Challenge. And basically what we do is, well, it's named after the original Black Wall Street, which was a town in Tulsa, Greenwood, that was destroyed 100 years ago. And we kind of are borrowing the name and the concept of just kind of showing the importance of how important it is to support our local Black-owned businesses. And we have just, well, I like to say we a lot, but a lot of times I mean just me and the whole challenge itself. But what we have been doing for the past almost 6 years is basically traveling the country, seeking out small Black-owned businesses, and then shopping with them and then challenging them to shop with another country. And so that's where we get the name Black Wall Street Challenge from. And sorry, I got a little box popping up. Basically, that's in a nutshell what we do. And we've been to over 50 cities across the country, and we shop with the business. We challenge them to shop with another Black business, and we actually like put them on our page. So we have a few different platforms: YouTube channel, Facebook group, IG page. And what we do is we share that information to that page, and that helps to streamline customers directly to those businesses. So that's who I am and what I've been doing for the past 6 years.
Fantastic. Let me ask you this, Stefan, because there's a lot of people that want to do something, right? They want to take action, they want to make a difference, but they just don't for whatever reason. What inspired you to do this? So what's the inspiration behind it for you personally to be doing this? And what were your first steps?
Okay, so what really inspired me to do the Black Wall Street Challenge was the fact that there was a need for it. So back when, I don't know if everyone's familiar, when the Mike Brown situation happened out in Ferguson, there was a lot of stuff going on the media and just the news, and they were shining kind of a negative light on our city, St. Louis. So I felt that that kind of motivated me to want to do something first. I didn't quite know what it was that I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something that would kind of turn that around for us, like the visualization of how people saw our city. And I felt like, you know, I just slept on that. I did a couple other things. I went to the meeting in March that year. I was just trying to figure out what, you get some inspiration from other people that were doing good things and big things. And one night I was just thinking about, it would be so cool if we could just go into like, find businesses and kind of highlight them so people will know where these businesses are. And I went to a cousin of mine that actually is a film producer and maker out here by the name of Craig Thomas. He has a company called Lovelace Films. Set up a meeting with him because I was like, I got this idea. I got to run it by somebody that I know has the experience. Told him about it. And the first thing he said was, I was BSing basically, because I told him that I had this cool idea. I thought it would be so good to do, and it would be something, kind of positive for the internet, and just, I would be using the internet for something good, which was rare at the time. So I was like, but I want everything to be in place. I need this, I need that, I want to do this, I want it to be this big major thing. And he looked at me and was like, you're BSing, man. He was like, you brought me out to tell me you had this cool idea. It's a good idea. You got the drive, you got the want. You seem to, have it all figured out. Why would you wait? And I kind of slept on it.
Did you say, Stefan, did you say he asked you, why would you wait?
And I was, yeah, why would I wait? Why do I need to wait to get all these things in line? And I think that was going to bring me to, you said the steps that I took. So the steps that I took were, I got up the next day and I started moving. I called up some of my resources that I knew I already had. Like, I knew somebody that was a cameraman. I knew some other people that were kind of social media influencers. I knew a lot of people around the city, and I knew some business owners. So I was like, you're right. So I got up the next day and I just did it. Now, to answer your question on like, what would I maybe tell people that want to do something like that? Do it. Don't wait, don't procrastinate, because sometimes we doubt ourselves, and that causes us to procrastinate on doing something really great. If it's a really great idea and it's something that will help other people, don't wait. Just do it. We did a lot of things blindly at first, but we figured it out. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the best teacher is experience. So just go do it, man.
That's great. It's funny. I chuckled a little bit, and I wasn't laughing at what you were saying, but I laughed a little bit about what you said. You said at the time, I was using the internet for good, and not many people do that at the time. And I'm like, what about this time? Nobody's using the internet for good now either. So it's you're setting a good trend. You're right. And a good example. But like, so Stefan, it's one thing to go out there and do something. And there's an old saying I love. It says, if you light yourself on fire with enthusiasm, people will come from miles around just to watch you burn. So there's a lesson in there that just inspired action can make things happen. But my question for you, 50 cities is an impressive number. And so with those 50 cities, how many Black-owned businesses have you had an opportunity to highlight? And do you have any idea of the economic impact on those businesses?
Okay. I have probably highlighted, hundreds of businesses. I actually have kept a pretty good log. It's over here. It's at least like 600 businesses that we've actually connected with. Now, actually physically shopping with, it's still hundreds, but the budget, we don't always have the budget. So sometimes we just have, I have all these other things, like I have decals that go into businesses. I have stickers and all these other things that we give to businesses just to let them know, hey, we came here. Can we maybe just decal in there so people know it's Black owned, or at least to know that we support you guys and they should too. So I don't really have an exact number, but it's up there for as businesses that we've actually impacted.
So, Stefan, could you just shout out your social media tags? How do people find you? How do they look at some of the videos, some of the work that you've done? And then don't forget, because you're featured on Changemakers, you guys can go to our website, arevitalizedworld.org, and you can actually make a donation that will benefit the Black Wall Street Challenge. So that money will be passed through. All proceeds from that donation will go directly to them to help them with their cause and help kind of fund the mission. So what's your handles? How can people find you? I think we're losing you, Stefan. We've got no audio. There we go. I got you back. Can you hear me now? Never works out when it's live the way it should. Stefan's gone. For those of you still watching live on Facebook, we can go edit this. So we'll see if he shows back up. Well, you win some, you lose some when it's live.
You do.
So anyway, it was a great interview with Stefan. We'll ask him to tag us. I know he's watching this live, so we'll ask him to put his social media handles, how you track down the Black Wall Street Challenge and how you track down him specifically. But Larry, talk about somebody inspired to take action based on a tragedy. And that's really what, the art of the pivot and mastering the spin are. It's taking something and making a swift turn. And when you're personally experiencing the tragedy, you have to master that spin in your head to take those next steps. So well done, Stefan.
Yeah, that's why I admire, again, so many of the change makers that were on last night and tonight, and ones we'll be featuring tomorrow, of how they've taken some type of challenge or tragedy or obstacle, and they've turned it in. They've not only turned it around for themselves, but they're turning it around for thousands of others. The fact that he's impacted about 600 businesses, nationwide is tremendous. And I also just really love what he said, and I just want to take a second and highlight it. And that's that you don't have to have it all planned out when you start. That's, I think, one of the biggest obstacles so many people have. They want to, get it all planned out. He just started. So you just have to take that first step. So congratulations, Stefan.
Yeah, he's just an amazing guy. And so is the next gentleman that we're going to be talking with. So Larry and I know him. We actually worked together with him at one point in time, Mr. James Rousseau. And, here's a guy that was at the top of his career and walked away because he was so passionate about the mission and the cause and what he was trying to do that he decided to just go for it. And he started an organization designed to help make sure that he wasn't the lone survival story coming out of his hood, so to speak. So, Larry, I'll let you cue him up and then we'll get it started.
All right. Well, I don't think he needs any more introduction, so let's get it started.
All right. Welcome back. I'm here with a friend of mine, James Rousseau. James, how are you?
I'm doing good, Jim. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm happy to be here with you and have an opportunity to share a little bit about your newest venture. I've known you, I guess, 5 or 6 years now.
Yep.
And I've seen you sit atop corporate America, do some amazing things. And we were chatting before we came online here. You walked away from that to follow this cause, which to me is the definition of what a change maker does. They go against the grain. They do things that other people go, man, are you crazy? And I'm sure you probably got some of that when you decided to do this.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I'm excited to reconnect with you here and share your story. Can you share with those that might be watching and seeing your smiling face for the first time a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and what you've done, and then we'll kind of frame up your new venture.
Sure. James Rousseau, Senior. I'm the CEO of a company called the CoreLink Solution. Prior to that, I spent 3.5 years or so as the president of business solutions at Legal Shield and the chief commercial officer. Prior to that, I was president of business solutions at the Allstate Insurance Company for about 3 years. And prior to that, senior vice president at JP Chase. And I'll stop there because then I'll age myself.
Yeah, we don't want to do that because I've known you for a little while and I'm starting to feel age as we're talking about it. But James, you shared with me, and this was really, it's really telling to me about who you are as a man, why you wanted to do this. And I'd like you to share with the audience, those watching Changemakers here, why you walked away from, those are some really impressive names you threw out. And the titles are even more impressive because there's tens of thousands of employees at those companies and not many people get to the level that you were at. Mm-hmm. And you walked away. Why?
Yeah, I grew up in North Philadelphia, a little area called Nicetown. And, growing up from there, people don't expect you to make it from there, point one, right? And then when you make it from there, I think you start to get through different places and organizations, and people use this term and go, you're special, right? So as an African-American male, you hear it a few times, you go, well, you know what? Special, when you first hear it the first time, it's like, that's cool, I'm making it. And then it clicks, you go, well, special is not scalable. That means we don't expect people to make it. And so you say, well, how do I help fix that problem? So initially my idea was, well, let me try to exceed and get towards the height inside of organizations. So you do that, you get on councils, you mentor a lot of people, and all those things are good, by the way. I was enjoying, I did tons of mentoring. And then you get to executive levels and you help pull people through the organization by not only mentoring, but hopefully changing processes and policies, et cetera. But then, for some of us, I think you hit a point where you say, you know what, I think I can do more good if I leave the organization and go back to where I came from to help people gain different perspectives, different skills, et cetera, to help them be more ready to attack whatever they want to do, whether it's a career inside of an organization, such as some I mentioned, or entrepreneurship.
That's amazing. And so your goal was to really go back to I don't want to say to your roots.
Yeah.
And by the way, when you said North Philadelphia, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air immediately kicked into my head. I was like, born and raised.
Born and raised, right? I know people do that all the time. He's West Philadelphia, but similar. Yeah. Similar.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly. Close enough.
Yeah. So, and you wanted to, I guess, go back to your roots and teach people how to come along for the journey. Is that a good way of putting it?
And I would say, you know what? And I say that in a very general way, right? Not just there, but to that population, right? And I really focus on African Americans 13 to 34, right? And I wrote a book called Success in Your Own Terms that was published in 2014. In that book, I really focused on 4 things, right? How you develop your passion and purpose, how you develop a network of people to help you live it out, how you then develop a concrete plan, and then how you learn and really embrace philanthropy, which is just another word for saying give it back to others, right? That book, over time, I turned it into a workbook after I did a lot of speaking and kind of the speaking circuit, right? And then we've since turned it into a course. So leaving was also part of that continued trajectory, right? How do we turn this into a course? How do we develop trainer so we can roll it out and scale it? Not just me going out, but helping other people who want to be facilitators, teachers in school, et cetera, who say, you know what, after school programs have been dying for years. There's not enough funding. When you look at those who go to after school programs, they perform better, right? So how do we help supplement that? And those are just some of the things we try to do at the CoreLink Solution.
Well, and let me throw something out. Now, I don't know all the statistics, and I'll hear something and a fragment of that will stick with me. So if I get this wrong, correct me if you know it. But I think the real danger zone for a lot of and I'm going to say to 18, I think the danger zone is that 3 to 6 p.m. in the afternoon after school. I've heard a lot of that. It's danger for criminal activity, drug use, suicide, sexual activity, all those things that can happen during those times without supervision. So the after school program was really critical once upon a time. Mm-hmm. And it's still critical now. It just doesn't really exist. And I guess your organization, the goal of that was to bring some of that back.
That's right. And, and I'm not as close to that statistic, but the statistic that I am close to is that math, reading, and science scores have not gotten, substantially better for the past decade or so, right? United States on a whole lags other countries, right? I think we're in the 30s relative to other countries. And then when you look at Black relative to white populations, right? It's just horrendous. It's the word I would use, right? So how do we help solve the gap, right? How do we give people learning opportunities to do more? One of the things, as we know, the after school programs used to do is solve this gap, right? So if you didn't get it all during the school day, you had tutoring, mentoring, other things that you could do in addition to athletic programs, right? To help fill that gap. We come in and say, well, look, we don't want to charge you for these things. Again, we're a nonprofit. So let us step in, not only with the papers and workbooks and whatnot, but I'll go into said classroom or I'll teach. Again, there's more facilitators or people willing to be put in service than you can imagine that we have out in different communities who want to do it.
Excellent. So I found out a long time ago that you can really challenge someone that isn't close to their mission. And I don't think this is you, but you can challenge them by simply asking why over and over and over again. So I want to hit you with the why. Why is this important to you?
Yeah. Because no one is disposable, right? I'm a Christian by faith. I proudly say that. And in God's kingdom, each person is created with a unique purpose, right? And so I always start with, when I'm talking to youth, with the superhero conversation. I ask kids all the time, who's your favorite superhero? And if you tell me about your favorite superhero, I will almost guarantee you 4 things are true. They usually find their superpowers by accident. They then goof around with them, right? But they find out what those superpowers are then to be put in service for. That's your passion or purpose. And then they usually have a guide. So Luke Skywalker has Yoda as an example, and that guide helps them down the path to honing those gifts, those talents, those superpowers in service of that purpose, right? The biggest, in my humble opinion, one of the largest travesties we have is when youth don't realize 2 things: that they have superpowers and that they were given to them for a specific purpose for their lives.
That's amazing, James. And so you came from a position where you had done well in corporate America and probably had, and again, I don't want to shortchange, pardon the pun, as you hear what I'm about to say, your journey in any way, but you probably had some funding that you put together to go after this. I'm assuming there was some self-funding on top of anything that you were involved in. But what would you say to those people that are inspired by what they've heard from you and they go, you know what? I grew up, I'm from St. Louis, and we hear the stories of kids growing up in East St. Louis that aren't supposed to make it, right? Yeah. They're not supposed to get out. They're supposed to be drug addicts and criminals and all the things that society has dictated. That's been the previous experience. So that's the path that they follow, but they break free, they break out, they come back, they help out. What would you say to those people that are inspired by what they heard from you today? How did you get started along that journey? And what would you say to them if maybe they don't have funding? How can they be a part of something bigger?
Yeah. So two things. One, I'll tell you one thing I did early on. And the second thing I'll tell you is what I've learned since now being on this journey after leaving organizations now for 3 years. Early on, one of the first decisions we made was to quote unquote, try to owe no man, right? I don't like debt, never liked debt. First bonus I got as a vice president in JP Morgan Chase, we started paying off our mortgage, right? And so we would forsake buying up to bigger homes. We would forsake getting new cars and so on and so forth to just pay off debt. So get as close to debt free as you can to be free. I wanted to be free to be able to do the things I wanted to do in my life, part one. So the more financial freedom I got, and I am so freaking fiscally conservative, you wouldn't believe it. So it was hard for me to walk away from quote unquote money, like you're saying, Jim. So I had to plan for this for quite a while. And then part two is one of the things I learned after I left corporate life is there are a lot of organizations trying to do this work. So you don't have to do it alone. Partnership, partnership, partnership. I've learned more to pick up the phone and call other organizations that are doing something similar, right? To say, hey, maybe almost like Tetris, how might we fit together? Because you're further along, you could use my help and we work together, right? I found out in Delaware, where I'm at, for example, there are more than 200 organizations trying to focus on the youth population I am, some form of youth, right? Why erect my organization in a solo way and say, oh, we're going to go solve this problem? I'd rather call folks and go, hey, I'm here to be of service, right? How can we work together?
It's a funny story. When I joined the board for Revitalize, one of the things that I told them is, people are itching to help out. They want to do something. They're looking for a cause. And it's funny because they said, well, how do you find those people? I said, I don't know. Let's put something on Eventbrite. And I put an event on Eventbrite called Revitalizing Revitalize, the name of our nonprofit. 62 people showed up to that event trying to volunteer their time, to the point where we didn't have 62 openings. I'm like, right. Well, let's hope. I'll take your name and number.
That's right. Roll call list.
Yeah. So people are looking to do something, and we're going a little bit over on time, but I think that's okay because I want to kind of trail down this rabbit hole a little bit with you. If you have just a minute or two more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So number one, you said you're in Delaware. What part?
Wilmington.
Okay. So, and if there's anybody in Wilmington that's listening to this and you want to volunteer and help out, I'm sure Mr. Rousseau has some openings and can find something for you to do.
Absolutely.
But where is the scope of your organization? Where are you going? Where are you servicing? What areas around the country?
We focus on the Philadelphia tri-state area, right, as the first touch point, but I think concentric circles. And in today's world, it's hard not to think about digital distribution. So, for example, we've got a program early next month with 50 youth in Virginia, right? And we're doing it via Zoom. We send the materials down, we send the digital workbooks, and we'll kick it off on Zoom. So, I mean, we can do it where the kids are.
One of the things my business partner, Larry, and we talk about is one of our core philosophies that we have is called the shifted reality. And I think that's really an interesting take. And let's apply that to what you said. If 1 out of 100 people get out of those bad situations, you look at that and go, that's terrible. That means that 99 people don't make it.
Right.
But if you take the same 1 out of 100, and I came up to you and I said, for $1, you can be put in a lottery for $1 billion, but you can only buy one. Everybody in that room would break out $1.
That's right.
Because your perspective has shifted to what's possible versus the negative side. So I think in that vein and in that respect, we talked about, I lost a business during COVID. I know people lost loved ones, and there was a ton of things that happened during COVID. But the beautiful thing about this is our evolution to digital.
Correct. And,
when I told my dad I needed him to jump on a Zoom call, he looked at me and goes, what the hell is Zoom? And I'm like, it's video chat. He goes, what's video chat? And it's so funny. And he's in his 70s, but it's a different world that we live in. And Les Brown says the word impossible really should be shifted into I'm possible.
Impossible. Right. Absolutely.
And I think there's so many great things that came out of what is clearly a tragic and horrible situation. But one of them is your ability to expand and go into Virginia. I want to connect with you offline. We do a lot of speaking at schools and we talk about those types of things and we work with schools. So might be a good opportunity to connect.
Happy to. Love
offline.
it.
I'll give you the last kind of 20 seconds. If you could throw out how people get in touch with you, how they follow you. And I will also let you know that every nonprofit featured on Changemakers21, there will be a link on our website where you can donate to Changemakers, donate to Revitalize, and a portion of that will go directly to the organization that you select. So if you liked what James had to say, you like what his organization does, you live in the Philadelphia tri-state area, or is Wilmington part of that?
Yes.
Okay. So geography, I need a
that's okay
program to learn geography.
I'm not much better.
but if you value what he said and you want to be a part of it, feel free to donate. And select his organization as a beneficiary of your donation to Revitalize, and we'll make sure a portion of that goes right on to James. But last 20 seconds, if you could share how people get in touch with you and how they follow your organization.
Sure. You can follow us. It's at thecorelinkSolution.com, exactly how it sounds. ThecorelinkSolution.com. And you can follow me on any social media channels at James Rousseau Senior. So SR at the end is my social handle. And that's it. And we're pretty easy, and I'm pretty responsive. And if you want to dial us, 302-894-7305.
Sounds great. James, thank you so much for joining us. It was great reconnecting with you. Congratulations on being nominated for the first class of Changemakers with Revitalize. And we're so excited to have you here. Guys, stay tuned. We've got more coming right after this. So more Changemakers, more heroes in the community doing their thing. Thanks for being a part of this, Mr. Rousseau, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
That was a great interview. I really love so many things that he said. I think I took a couple notes, so if I'm looking down, please forgive me, but I had to take some notes. But I think I really loved when he said, when the youth don't realize that they have the superpower. And, you know, we all have a superpower. And I just thank God for his organization and for others that are giving youth that, you know, feeding their superpower within them so that they can begin to see themselves in a different light. And I also just loved also what he said about the after school programs. Just kind of, if I can just editorialize for just 10 seconds, those after school programs are so important. I mean, we've got to put more money into our after school programs so that we can continue to do a better job at preparing our youth for their adult years.
Yeah, we've had great speakers on so far tonight. People that, you know, this wasn't their original calling in life. They've all just adapted and adjusted. It's been really an amazing thing. And our next guest is really no different. I don't know if you're ready to go out to the next guest, Larry, but I can. It's Mr. BJ Murphy out of Kinston, North Carolina. So I'll take it and we'll cue this up. So BJ was the youngest mayor in history in his particular area, but in the United States, for the size of town that he is in, he was the first or the youngest mayor ever. And he was mayor for about 8 years, and then had a realization that when he was mayor, the news coverage was all negative. And it wasn't just about him being mayor, but it was just in general. And there was very little that was local. So he went on a mission to change that and share what's going on in the world in his little neck of the woods that's positive. So let's take a listen to Mr. BJ Murphy. All right, we're back on Changemakers. I'm joined today by BJ Murphy. Hello, BJ. How are you?
I'm great, Jim. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being here. I got a nomination for you from someone we both know, and he mentioned all the great things that you were doing. But our audience, I'm venturing to guess, is probably unfamiliar with you. So can you share a little bit about who you are, what you've done in your professional career, and then we'll kind of morph into where you are now?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Again, my name is BJ Murphy from a town called Kinston, North Carolina, about 20,000 people. You know, more or less grew up here, you know, from buying baby clothes to fish, and you name it, public high schools, local university. Came back home, got involved in my future mother-in-law's restaurant business. That led to helping to manage downtown Kinston. It's about 30 square blocks of our community, all the way to getting into sales, where I was a commission-only sales guy. So through that process, I got to learn a lot about my community. I ended up running for office for mayor of my community at 25. Nobody expects a 25-year-old to win in a town of 20,000 people. And so, of course, I didn't win. But out of 4,000 some hundred votes cast, I think I only lost by 300. And in other words, what it showed me about our community is that there was a small little inkling of our community that realized that, hey, maybe a new direction is possible. So 4 years later, I decided to run for again. One, became the youngest mayor our town has ever had, and served for 8 years, and in the process started a really cool business that I'm sure we'll talk about here in just a moment.
Yeah, that's great. So your involvement in the town, is it Kingston or Kinston?
Kinston, Kinston, Kinston.
Perfect.
We dropped the G during the American Revolution. That is a fun fact about our community. It used to be Kingston.
Yeah, so you can no longer be the OG, right?
That's right.
the missing G. So BJ, you were inspired to run for mayor, and we're going to talk a little bit about what the organization that you built is doing, but I want to talk about you for just a second and why you felt inspired to run for mayor, what your goals were. And I don't mean from a political standpoint, but what you were wanting to do in your community.
No, and I appreciate that. Look, in the politics of it, basically, whether someone's a Democrat, Republican, when it comes to local issues, and I'm talking about small town USA, most of our country, the issues aren't identified by a national political party. The issues we deal with are street resurfacing, water and sewer, crime, good schools, electric bills, and the property tax rate, those equipment for our firefighters and EMS. Those are issues that we deal with on a local basis. So what kind of inspired me to run? I guess what I saw in our community was the need for a little bit different direction at the time. And I thought, you know what, I can't be on the sidelines and complain. We call people nowadays the keyboard warriors. They'll get on social media on their cell phones and, just talk a lot of, have a lot of criticism about local government or even national politics, but not give back, not put their name on a ballot, or not vote, or not give money to a campaign, or not volunteer for a campaign. All the things that you can do to be active in changing that government that you want to change. And so I said, well, it's only $10. What do I have to lose at 25? And so I decided to do it. Some of the things I worked on during my tenure, though, is really neat. When you get in these kind of positions, you work on a lot of big projects that sometimes you don't see to fruition until after you're out of office, just the nature of how government works. But from placing major water sewer lines to building I call it we're the city of Kinston, the capital C, but building the community of Kinston, the people. So like if we had something to happen bad, like maybe a shooting, which isn't a normal occurrence, it happens a handful of times a year, of course. But when those kind of things happen, that there was some mechanism of helping the community cope by bringing the religious community involved in it. Maybe it was a prayer vigil or something, to helping build up the local Crime Stoppers, making sure that was had an active board, had money in the bank, making sure that our planning policies were such that we reduce the concentration possibilities of crime. Those are all the kind of things we really got to work on. And it wasn't until after I got out of office that I realized how much time I was spending day to day or week to week on all these issues. And so it was a lot of fun. And if I had to do my life all over again, I would do it the exact same way. It was a blast, and I love giving back to my community. I'd encourage other people certainly to vote, but consider putting your name up or giving somebody some money or volunteering for a campaign if you want to see that change in your community as well.
That's great. You and I had a conversation before we went online here just about, I guess, what really inspired you to take action in your current venture and the impact that it's already had on your community. And I'll share with the audience, and I've talked about this before, but one of the reasons why Changemakers even exists is really born out of a frustration that there's so much negativity portrayed everywhere, from the national media to even local media,
right,
or news outlets, moreover. But there was nobody really telling the good. So we got inspired to share all the good stories that were happening. And when I talked to you, it was like these puzzle pieces just falling into place. And I'm like, that's what we wanted. Right. So can you share a little bit about what you've put together and the impact that it's already had on your community?
Absolutely. And so, Jim, when I was serving as mayor, one thing that I realized, because I was serving from 2009 to 2017, when Facebook started to become a household name, up until even now, it's really saturated in terms of the number of people who are involved in it. And so basically what I did is I realized that sometimes our local news, whether it's the TV stations or the print, maybe wouldn't carry a story that I thought, or maybe wouldn't tell the story the way I thought it should be done, because they had an ulterior ad-driven motive behind their reporting. And so I started by that almost. I was almost forced to go to social media to try to tell my side of the story, or tell our community story in a different light. And so doing that over all these years, when we had a major crisis happen, it was a major hurricane in 2016 called Hurricane Matthew. It brought a tremendous amount of rain across North Carolina. We've got, I think, eight or 9 inches of rain here over a very short period of time. It created the largest flood we've ever had here. People were displaced, some lives were lost, homes definitely damaged. But in that process, using social media was really important. But I also realized during all that maybe I had a skill set that could help small businesses, nonprofits, events, to also figure out how to take your message, take your marketing ideas, and apply it to the social media realm. So I started a company called Magic Mile Media to do just that. In the process of all that, though, it was like, well, maybe we can take the same digital social media philosophies on the how you approach social media and how you communicate to the public, to your customer or consumer or prospective client or your neighbors. How could we apply that to the local news industry? Most local newspapers are still print across the country. They have a digital product, but you still can walk up to the local restaurant and there's like a vending machine where you put a bunch of quarters in, and you're lucky if you get some good quality news there, because these local newspapers have been bought up by corporations across the country, and they've merged. And as they've merged, the news has become more regional, state, and national. So most headlines have like a President Biden or Vice President Harris on it, or the governor of our state. And you're lucky if one of the top headlines has local in nature. So we started a local news company called Noose. News is named after the river here in Eastern North Carolina. It's a free publication. So I said, I want it to be absolutely free. In fact, we don't have no pop-up ads. We have ads, but none of those annoying pop-up ads on our site. And we grew very rapidly. We surpassed the local print publication subscriber rate in 6 months. We're now, in our town of 20,000, we now have 5,000 daily subscribers. Our Facebook following now is 14,000. We do live feeds of football game, the high school football games. We're working right now on the report of the local elections. People are filing for mayor and city council right now. So we're putting out that news. And we're doing it for free to the community. It's supported, underwritten by local advertisers, but it's free to the community, free to the subscribers. And we've also taken that model and helped some other folks with it as well. So it's a lot of fun helping our community in that way.
Yeah. Can we talk for just a minute, BJ, about the feedback that you've gotten from people? And this was not like, I didn't even know this question was going to pop up, but as I heard you talk, when you have 14,000 subscribers on social media, that's a huge percentage of the population. I'm sure some of it's outside of your local area, but the 5,000 daily subscribers to have a 25% subscription rate is unheard of in your industry. Right. So what is some of the feedback that you're getting from people on what your product or your company has meant to them?
Well, it's actually been kind of refreshing for the community, and it certainly is a little bit of, I hope it's not ego or vanity coming through, but it's people were just upset at the idea that the local news wasn't truly local anymore. So by refocusing on our communities, our blocks, our schools, the roads, our police officers, our emergency management folks, by focusing back on what's happening in our backyard, little Johnny hit a grand slam to win the game, right? By focusing on these types of stories, we're able to reconnect the readers who are our citizens, our community, back to what's really happening with their neighbors, maybe across town or maybe on the other block over, that just didn't know about it. And so making that connection for the community has helped the community. So like, for example, it wasn't long after we started our local news business here that we actually had another hurricane. And our small office, typically on day to day, people focus. You see some team members here, but typically day to day focus on news, because I've got other clients on another side of the business. But we have about 3, maybe 4 people day to day working the business. Well, during a hurricane or a flood, we couldn't have everybody here. And this was right when we started. And so I had people, some of my team members on different sides of the town or in another county. And so we were getting flooded ourselves with questions about, is this road open, or what is the wind speed, or how much rain are you getting? And so we even started a Facebook group that we branded for our company. We call it We Reports News. And it allowed, so we just said, hey, if you have this problem, go to this Facebook page. And the idea is that neighbors can engage neighbors can help neighbors, that somebody who lived on Cary Road may know that Vernon Avenue is not the road to take because there was a tree blocking it. And that wasn't something that I would know from my office because I'm not there. And so by allowing the community to help the community, it brought the community closer together using a free tool, again, for them. That our only benefit of it was we're moderating it because we don't want a lot of foul, nasty stuff happening there. So we don't allow the bickering, but it allows community to have a constructive dialogue on issues.
I think that's great. BJ, I'm gonna in these last 30 seconds, I want to give it to you. What I'd like to know is, I'm assuming people that are watching this are going to get inspired by some of the things that you've said, and we've already gotten that feedback on other change makers. They hear the interviews, they hear what's going on, they go, man, I want to get involved, but they don't know where to start.
Right.
And you've mentioned a couple things from a political perspective,
right,
but a lot of people are like, no, right. I don't want to talk politics, right? So that. For the people that are looking to do something to make an impact on their community, where would you advise them to start, or what advice do you have for them?
Well, first, your voice matters, and that the community can learn from your perspective on an issue. I mean, people even in my own office, we disagree on issues all the time, so much that we create a vlog series called The Journey that we post on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. It's just kind of the behind the scenes of what happens in our office every day. I would just encourage people to, whether it is a church or whether it is the PTA or whether it is the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or the soccer team, to one, show up, be present, understand that this next generation is watching you, and that your voice really does matter, that you have value you can give, whether you're good at speaking in front of a group or whether you can raise money or whether you know how to make the best door wreath and sell it for a nonprofit for $50 or whatnot to help them raise money. That each person has a talent, a skill that they can give back to their community, whether it's for the pet shelter or for the Red Cross or for a planning appointment, a planning committee for the community. Or it is running for office, whatever it is, that there's a role for you to play. And I really believe no matter what your skill set, that everybody has a role to play and should.
That's fantastic. BJ, thanks so much for being our guest here today. And tell everybody how they can find you online.
All right. So you can find me. My website is bjmurphy360.com, and you can connect with me from TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. They're all there. It's bjmurphy360. And my company's magicmilemedia.com. And so there's a lot you can find out about our team, some of the background, connect to some of those videos. But regardless of whether it's a for-profit, nonprofit, or whether you just want to call, get some help or advice, or whether you want to do a business deal, I love helping people, and I'd love to help you.
BJ, thank you so much for being with us. Guys, stay tuned. There's a lot more Changemakers. If you like what you heard from BJ, you're going to love what we have coming up next. It's all good news. So, BJ, thanks for being with us. More Changemakers coming up soon.
What a great guy. I mean, it's just another example of someone who's so passionate and authentic and just gives from his heart. And you really got the feeling that, you know, I could pick up the phone tonight and call him and he'd be right there for me. So just. And more importantly, he'd report the call. I got this great call. Be on the news now. Yes, for sure. For sure. I'd like to, hey, Jim, I want to take just a second and honor someone if I can. So, the Jim and Larry team, we put on this event and it's just us. We had no outside help. And I just want to take a minute and really salute my business partner, Jim Shelby. And the reason is we've been working on this for several weeks. And a few weeks ago, I became very ill. I ended up in the hospital a couple times and didn't quite know what was wrong with me or what my path of recovery would be. So most of the work that was put into this was really put into this by Jim. And I just want to acknowledge you, Jim, and let everybody know that while I was down, and I'm fine now, I'm the path to recovery, but while I was down, you were really there and that you put your heart and soul into this. So I appreciate that.
Larry, I'm muted. Why didn't you flag to me that I was muted?
Oh, I
could just hear it, not hearing. Yeah, no, it's terrible. Let me start over with that. Larry, you were there for me when a couple years ago I was misdiagnosed. I was told I was dying, but Larry was there for me during that, and it's really the least I could do. But something was said to me by my dad when I was younger. He said, if you are lucky enough to have one really good friend in your life, you're luckier than anywhere. And Larry's been that friend for me since I met him. He was there for me when I got divorced or going through the divorce. He was there, with our business successes and our business failures. And he was the one right there at my side the whole time. So I think for all of those people listening out there, appreciate what you have and who you have, because you just never know. And thank you for saying what you said, Larry. Thanks for not letting me know I was muted.
Sorry, I thought it was just me.
That is not surprising.
I know.
Hey,
I want to share one thing that maybe the most influential mentor in my life was my dad. He built a very successful business. And one of the things he told me, whether you're in a relationship or whether you have a business partner, most people are, they want it to be 50-50. But he told me when I first started business years ago with a friend of mine, he said, the partnership will never be 50-50 at any given time. It'll be 70-30, it'll be 80-20, it'll be 90-10, it'll be 55-45. He goes, over the long haul, it'll be about 50-50, but if you stop and take score at any one moment, it'll never be 50-50. So I think that's good advice to share with folks out there that are in a relationship or have a business partner. It's never 50-50. Rarely is it. In the end, it is.
Yeah, and let me throw one other thing out there, Larry. And this is, a lot of people have asked, what do you guys do?
Yeah.
Exactly. Including family members have asked me that question. Like, what is it that you guys do? And so we work with various businesses. We invest with businesses. We buy businesses. We're really committed to continuing to nurture the small business culture in our country. But on top of that, we are really committed to creating a new wave of thinking amongst people. And, people ask me all the time, you're so carefree. You're like, you don't ever like get upset, which is not true. I get very upset when I'm upset, but you know, it's because of the lifestyle. And in the midst of losing $1 million business, wow, it's really sad when I say that. In the midst of losing a business and losing $1 million in the process, having to retransform, revitalize, having to lay off our entire staff, you know, those things are tough, but how do you remain optimistic and how do you remain mindful to be grateful for what you have and live in that attitude and that era of gratitude? And it's pretty simple for me because it can always be worse, right? If you recognize that it can always be worse, and that's a real doom way of looking at things, but it can always be worse. So if you can recognize that it can always be worse, be grateful that you can always find better. And that's what we teach. That's what we do. It's kind of an abbreviated way of putting it, you know, but we put on workshops and seminars. We work one-on-one with people. And
we also work with the schools.
Yeah, we work a lot with the youth. We talk to various schools around the country. And, you know, it's kind of a blessing to be able to live the life that we have. And I think the Changemakers exemplify that too. Like your circumstance, your history, and your past do not ever dictate your future. The only thing that they've done is put you in your present. It's up to you to do the rest. So I think we should get on to our next Changemaker.
Yeah,
what do you
think?
I
introduce her? Let me introduce her.
Yeah. Do you know who it is?
I think so. Are the initials SL?
What? No, yes, they are.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
You take it away, Larry Cohn.
Great. So a few weeks ago, I was reading the newspaper, or I was actually online reading the digital newspaper here in St. Louis. And I read about this lady who just had recently started this incredible organization. And I thought what was incredible about it was that it was so community, so neighborhood focused. And it was very powerful for me, but also very simple. And I'm speaking abstractly because I don't want to steal any of what she's saying, but she's been able to take something and turn it into something very useful for the community. So I emailed her right away, and I think a week later we were talking, and we haven't had a chance to face-to-face meet yet, but I really look forward to meeting her, and more importantly, really look forward to working with her and supporting her organization. She does great things. So I'm going to introduce Samantha Lee, and Jim, can you put up that interview, please?
I suppose I can do that for you, Mr. Cohn. Here we go, all Samantha Lee. All right, everybody, we're back on Changemakers. I'm here with Samantha Lee. Hello, Samantha.
Hey.
Can you tell us the name of your organization first? Let's start with that.
Sure. So my organization is a nonprofit called Pocket Parks.
And really quickly, what does Pocket Parks do?
So Pocket Parks turns underutilized vacant lots into beautiful, active community spaces.
I love that. You've practiced that a time or 6, right?
I feel like it's all I've been saying lately. But no, it's great. This business and nonprofit that we're building has gotten such a great response from the community. And so, if I feel a little robotic in our elevator pitch, that's probably why, because I've been talking about it a lot because people are curious, they're interested, they want to know. And I think that embrace from the public has just proven to me that this is something that needs to happen. So it's been very exciting.
Yeah, and let's kind of start there. So the response has been amazing. In fact, we heard about you. I don't remember the media channel that we heard of you through, if that's grammatically correct, but we found out about you and found out what you were doing, and it was impactful to us as an organization to hear about what you're doing. And with Changemakers, what we're doing is we're trying to find those people that are taking action against the odds or that are maybe the unsung heroes of a neighborhood that nobody hears about and get their stories told. So I couldn't think of a better reason to feature you on Changemakers than I've seen what you're doing. I've heard about it, and it's amazing What are the benefits of taking these underutilized parcels of land and turning them into something functional for the community? I'm sure you have these statistics.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of vacancy in St. Louis, and there's a lot of harmful things that come with vacancies. I mean, not only is it just ugly and perceived to be dangerous, but there's actually data out there that shows heightened levels of crime near vacant lots. So aside from that, they're also costly. It costs the city a lot of money to actually care for and maintain these lots, and they're just an overall burden. They, they depreciate property values. And what the community really needs, especially kind of coming out of this pandemic, is safe outdoor space to come together and activate. And activation is really a key to what we're trying to do. I keep telling people, this is a parks project, yes, but really it's much more than that. It's a platform to build up the ecosystems of our communities. And what we try to do is incorporate 3 things into every park, and that's artwork, activation, and opportunity. And through all of these things, we really kind of create this well-rounded space that provides the community with an asset versus the burden of vacancy. So it's been a really interesting process. A lot of learning involved. This is the first time I've been involved in a nonprofit. And there's a lot of listening to community members on what they're looking for. And what I like about Pocket Parks is that because we're staying small outdoor spaces, we're able to do a lot with limited resources. We don't need expansive capital and long time frames. We can start making impact within weeks with limited resources and volunteer work. So what we're kind of doing is, I would call it like a little brother to some of our other development partners out there who are doing big, expansive projects. We're kind of coming in first and being really lean and mean and flexible with our model, so that way we can start making impact now versus making impact a year from now.
That's great. Samantha, let's talk about you now, if we could. So what was the motivator behind Pocket Parks? Why did you start this?
Well, I'm a designer by trade, and I actually have a background in interior design, which is kind of funny because now I feel like I'm the parks lady. So I'm taking my design skills and taking them outdoors, essentially. I know how impactful the built environment can be on one's mental and physical health. And I really wanted to use my skill set for public impact work. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to kind of bridge those 2 things together. And what I realized, and through this research and through just kind of becoming more involved in the community, is that public space is the space that we all share. It's something that everyone has access to. It's equitable. It's something that we can really start creating the impact communities at large, and it gives the city a personality. Downtown was looking pretty dreary 6 months ago, and even now sometimes there's areas and pockets of downtown St. Louis that aren't so inviting. And we can change that with just 4 hours and a few cans of paint. It's not something that's takes an expansive amount of resources, like I said. So I started really becoming interested in doing positive impact work for the community and using my design skills, problem solving skills to make that happen.
That's great. I guess my question for you is, why was it important to you? Why was it a motivator for you to do that? Yeah. Why did you want to get involved with this type of work?
Yeah. I've loved my career up to this point. It's been fairly corporate, a lot of corporate interior design projects and product projects and marketing. And it was always kind of around, obviously, either selling a product or selling a brand or creating a space for people who were working in that space. And it was all really interesting, but it was very siloed on a focused audience, right? And I wanted to do something bigger that reached more people, that created more impact for more people. And I think all of that work is still very interesting. There's nothing wrong with it. But I really wanted to kind of go outside of that to create built environments and spaces that were really impacting lives of people in communities that could appreciate them every day, and not just someone who is sitting in a very nice office in a tower somewhere. It was really about helping more people and creating more of a larger impact.
Awesome. And you started in St. Louis, which is obviously near and dear to me, but you're expanding. I think you told me about a project in Kansas City that you're trying to put together.
We're in conversations. Nothing has really started tracking there just yet, but we've had conversations with Kansas City, some folks in Chicago, even some folks in Texas have reached out, and they're kind of all just saying, hey, when you've got the platform and you're ready to go, we want to talk. So it's really exciting that, yes, this started in St. Louis, but now it's tracking and it's got legs, if you will, to start helping other cities for that even farther reach and creating even more impact. So I'm excited. I think that it might take a little bit of time. You know, we're kind of right in our infancy and really trying to remain flexible and agile to figure out what works, especially with, you know, real estate negotiations and kind of those business side of things. That's, you know, kind of taking away from the design. Design is still very important, but as soon as we kind of have all these puzzle pieces in play and we're able to really see what works, I'm ready to start approaching other cities and growing pocket parks wherever it starts kind of happening organically. So
fantastic. Well, I know you're involved with some of our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. So those of you in those cities, watch for Samantha. She'll be all over expanding. I have no doubt there's going to be a Pocket Parks in Malaysia or Cuba or somewhere later on down the road. You're going to blow it up all over everywhere. But so my last question to you is, what advice would you have for those that are really interested in making an impact, don't know where to start? You were able to do it because of your background and the things that you had learned, and you're able to do it on, I think you said lean and mean, but like with very little budget to get started. What advice do you have for those that maybe don't feel like they even have any budget to get started? How do you just do something?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we're still kind of in our bootstrapping phase, but I think making sure that you have a focus and a strong message, that is key and crucial to communicating what you're trying to do. And if you're not really sure what you're trying to do yet, I think it's helpful to kind of look at your skill set, look at what you enjoy, what you think there is a market for, and start to kind of overlap that Venn diagram to see what fits in the middle. And a big key to that is also, what does the world need? What can you do, your skill set, what do you enjoy, what does the world need, and start to kind of focus in on those elements that you can actually have an impact on. And then finding the right messaging, getting out in front of as many people as possible to tell your story. And listening, I think, is really important, because when you're trying to make a strong impact, it's not really about you. It's about the people that you're trying to help or make an impact for. It's about the people receiving the help that you're trying to give. So staying flexible while you're figuring that out is really important. So that way you can make little shifts and change direction if needed, but you're still helping to provide impact in that way. So.
Fantastic. For those of you that enjoyed Samantha's message and you want to see how you can help out Pocket Parks, obviously her website's been crawling across the screen the entire time we've been talking, but there's also an opportunity to go to our website, arevitalizedworld.org, go to the Changemaker tab, and you will see an opportunity to make a donation to Changemakers. And if you select Pocket Parks as your charity, a portion of that donation will go towards helping them fulfill their mission. So Samantha, thank you so much for being with us today. It was really great having a chance to get to know you a little more. And stay tuned for more Changemakers21 coming up right after this. Samantha, you get the last 10 seconds. Send us off.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Please visit our website. We're working on 6 different parks right now and growing. So stay tuned and follow us on social media.
Sounds great. Changemakers coming to you more just a little bit later. See you later. Thanks so much for watching.
Yeah, I just love pocket parks. I think it's such a great concept. And, like she said, it's kind of in the bootstrapping stage, but Samantha's been able to get some great press here in St. Louis. And I'm going to be enjoying watching her journey as she grows through St. Louis and expands to other cities nationwide. And congratulations. And we at Revitalize and we at the Jim and Larry team and myself, Larry, I look forward to working more closely with you. Again, if you'd like to donate to Samantha, you can donate through the Revitalize site, and Jim and Larry, our team, we will match those grants up to $5,000. So your money will go a long way, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, and I encourage you to donate. There's a lot of times where you don't realize the impact that you can have with just a little bit of effort or just a little bit of money. And you heard some of the things Samantha is working on and what it takes to put that together. And you can actually name her as one of the change makers that you want your donation to benefit. So Revitalize wants to continue its mission of sharing the stories of those doing amazing things around the world. Tonight, we are in the middle. We're actually on the home stretch of 11 of the 45 Changemakers that we will feature in 2021. Larry, what's your highlight so far of the event?
Just seeing how so many people have, been able to take their spirit and their passion and their past and their challenges and not only become better themselves, but giving it back to the community. So that's I think the overarching theme tonight is giving back and giving back through your own experiences.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And again, it's what a lot of them had to go through to get where they are that has impressed me so much. So you want to cue up the next lady that we're going to be talking to?
Yeah, so I'm going to share with you an experience that I had that has inspired me to create the Jim and Larry team and then to give back through Revitalize. So several years ago, I was homeless, and then I found a little place to live. And long story short, I was in a really bad place in my life, but I made a commitment that I would get better. And I made a commitment to myself that where I was, meaning in this like poverty place and this place of what other people might call hopelessness, would actually be really, really good. And I didn't know how it would be really good. I just set the tone that it would be good. So one of the things that I promised myself was that 5 nights a week, I would attend some type of positive event. And I had very little money, I had no transportation, and I had one of those little disposable phones that had no texting or internet access or anything like that. So I was in Chicago. It was a snowy night, and clearly a night that most people wouldn't want to go out, but I had made that commitment to myself. So I think I took a couple of buses, and then I had to walk about 10 or 15 blocks to get to this event. And I walked through snow. I didn't have the right shoes. It was freezing cold. And I get there and I ring the bell, and the lady's voice comes over because it was the security at an apartment. And she says, "Oh, didn't you get the email that the event was canceled?" And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't want to tell her that I didn't have email access or that I was embarrassed or anything like that. And it was a positive focus event. And she said, "Well, you're here, just come on up." So I came up and had the opportunity to meet this lady. We had a wonderful conversation that night, and I went to several of her positive focus events, and I'm going to introduce her in just a second. But I hope what you'll take from my story is that when you make the commitment to do something, just do it. It would have been easy to give up because there were many reasons in the snow not to do it, but I persevered. So Jim, you're cutting me off.
Well, just before you introduce her, number one, she had no idea. She said in the comments, she had no idea that you had gone through that. So you haven't told her?
I know. Never. No.
So, and I just want to point out, for those of you that know Larry, if you ever text or email or call and he doesn't get it, it's not because he's falling back into hopelessness. It's because he doesn't know how to use his phone. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, I was too embarrassed to tell her. So anyways, thank you, Carol, for inviting me up that night. And let's introduce Carol Miller, Positive Focus from Chicago. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Changemakers21. I'm here with a truly special lady, Carol Miller. Carol, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you are and your background and what you do?
Absolutely. I am Carol Miller. I live in Chicago, Illinois. And in 2009, I started an organization called Positive Focus. And from there, I have been doing work around helping people look at love over fear, health over illness, and just finding ways to let people know that they matter in the world. So that's what I'm here to do.
That's fantastic. I want to tell you like why we selected you as an honoree for the Changemakers.
I would like to know myself.
So I just have been so impressed with your work since I met you, and I think that was maybe 2010 or 2011, something like that. Because everything you do yourself. Like there is no staff. There's some volunteers, but it's all you.
Yeah. And
you really are a definition of a change maker. And you are really an example of what we want to illustrate in these 3 days of programming, meaning that if you have an inspiration, if you want to make your community better, you can do it on your own. You don't need lots of money. You don't need lots of staff. Right. You don't need anything. You can just do it. So that's why you were selected, because you have such a rich and deep heart and a spirit of joy and giving. And you have really created significant change in many people, including myself, because when I first met you, I was not in a good place myself. So I am part of your success story.
Oh, nice.
Just to let you know. So can you tell me just a couple of the challenges or successes that you'd like to share with people out there that are important to you?
Absolutely. And I think it both goes into a challenge, turns into an opportunity, because when you had just mentioned that I am Positive Focus, I do it out of my living room and I travel when I can. But when I first started it, I wanted it to be like a Red Cross all around the world and helping people. And so the challenge there was I did not want to run an organization. I wanted to help people. And at the time, I thought I had to be a big organization to be able to help people. But you don't have to. You just start from where you're at and take those steps forward to continue doing it. And the more I got involved, the more I really knew how important it was for people to feel seen and to know that they matter. I'm a big believer that if you feel seen and heard in this world, you're far likely less going to harm yourself or others. So that's the work that I'm here to do. Success stories would be, I do a global hug event, which right now, because of COVID, is in hiatus. But I've had huggers from 6 continents, I don't remember, 45 countries and 32 US states involved. And Desmond Tutu joined me a couple of times. So it's really about sharing, letting people know that they matter. That's great. The main thing.
So can you tell me what inspired you to do what you do? Because I know you shared a little bit about that, but the amount of work that you do for your organization and for other people, was there anything in your past or any mentor that helped you, that inspired you to create the impact you're making?
My past was my father passed away in 2006, and that just changed my world. So I started taking different courses, and one of them was Science of Mind courses. And I realized just truly how powerful our thoughts are, and to help people start focusing on what they want in their lives rather than what they don't want. Hardship happens in all of our lives. I deal with challenges in my life. I deal with sadness, frustration, anger, all of those things too. But I have tools that I don't stay in that space for very long because it doesn't feel good. So I move to feeling a little bit better.
Sure. And what type of impact do you hope and think that you've made?
That's one of the things when I'm talking about encouraging others to make an impact, you
Sure.
don't ever know. Like when I think about it personally, sometimes I'm on the street and somebody might smile on a moment that I'm not having a good day, and that impacts me.
Mm-hmm.
A kind word impacts me. So a lot of times people aren't going to know what kind of impact they've had. So I just show up as kind as I can and do what I can. And if people are ready to receive that, then all the better. But one of my goals is I have a goal for 1 million hugs across the world to do them, because when I started the hug movement, I was terrified to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a hugger before. And very quickly, people would tell me that they had not received a hug in weeks, and how I realized how disconnected a lot of people are. And just that quick embrace, I've had many, many people tell me how important it was for them to receive. So that's
beautiful.
That's my passion.
That's great. So what advice would you have to someone who is passionate about their community, knows that they want to make a difference, but they really don't know where to start or how to do it, or feel they don't have enough money? Any words of wisdom, tips, anything you'd like to share as we close?
Yes, absolutely. One I would say is to know your why, because I get frustrated and think I'm not doing this anymore, but I go back to my why of helping people and wanting people to feel seen. So know the reason why you want to help. And then just take small steps. Like when I started doing Global Free Hugs, I was just emailing people and I was calling people, and I did not stop. And if you have just 1 second, my biggest story of what keeps me going is I emailed many famous people to join me. Mm-hmm. And Desmond Tutu, it was an info@tutu.com, and he responded that he would do it. So you don't know where your yes is going to come from, but it's going to be a no if you don't try.
I love that. That's great advice, and something that I share with you with that philosophy. I want to thank you again for joining us and being a part of this 3-day online event. And again, thank you again, personally, for doing what you do, because you impacted me at that time in my life. So that's from me to you. And thanks for sharing your story with us.
You're very welcome. And thanks for the connection. It's always good to see you.
Great. You too. All right. Stay tuned for more Changemakers21. Thank you. Great interview. And thanks again for joining us, Carol, and congratulations on being a Changemaker21 honoree. Your story and the story that I shared with everyone a minute ago reminds me of a quote that I've always kept close to me, and I want to share it with everybody. I've been told it's an old Chinese proverb, but it goes like this: the person who says it cannot be done should never interrupt the person doing it. And that just means, there were times in my life and times in all these Changemaker stories where you didn't know how you were going to do it, and you didn't have to figure it out. And people, will say, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? Well, don't interrupt me. I'm doing it. And then when I'm done, I'll tell you how I did it. So I just thought I'd share that. And Jim, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really appreciate, can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I've been muted like 17 times on the broadcast already. One of the things that I think is really important is don't be afraid to share the struggle. That's something that Larry and I talk about all the time. You'll see these $1 million a year gurus talking about what they did to get through their struggles after they already did it. And I'll tell you, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to share the struggle that you're going with. Reach out to one of us, reach out to one of the Changemakers. I know they'll pick up the phone and they'll talk to you. So they're just an incredible group of people, and that's why they've been assembled. And, over the course of the last hour we have here tonight and tomorrow, we'll announce some ongoing plans for the Changemakers as we evolve into 2022. Just 5 months away. It's crazy. But yeah, so don't be afraid to announce your struggle and share it with everyone. And I'm going to put something up here on the screen. So James Rousseau, I messaged him and asked him to put his website on here because we didn't have it in the original part of his interview. So it is here. Larry, are you ready to go into our next Changemaker who's going to be here?
Yes, actually, I am looking forward to listening to the interview because, like I said, I was ill for a period of time, and I really don't know anything about this lady except what you shared with me, Jim. So
she's right. Well, then let me do it.
Yeah,
let me do it then. So I talked to her on the phone, and then we talked, and we actually recorded the video. And when I say she is just a bubbly person with a lot of energy and passionate about what she's doing, that is a gross understatement. She's an amazing example of what it's like to live life on purpose and go after it. One of our philosophies, we have a Facebook group called Meraki, and she is an example of someone who lives Meraki. Look that up if you don't know what it means. But we're going to introduce right now Miss Lena Chapman. All right, we're back, and we're back this time with Lena Chapman. Lena, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It was funny. We chatted a little bit offline, and as soon as you came on screen, it's like you're so bubbly, like you can feel it through the camera.
Yes.
So I hope our audience is feeling your energy, and I definitely am so excited to have you here. But there's going to be a lot of people on here. You know, we're broadcast all over the world right now. There's several countries that I know of and several continents that have people featured on Changemakers. So lots of places tuning in. And I'm going to venture a guess, most of those 8 billion people don't know who you are. So can you take just a quick second and share who you are, your background, where you live, all that good stuff?
Absolutely. So my name is Lena Chapman, and I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I am 35 years old, married to my wonderful husband, Jerome Chapman, and have 2 wonderful young boys, LJ and Josiah. And basically, I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Missouri. And so that's pretty much who I am. And I am the owner of Haven of Light Christian Counseling, and also the president of Haven of Light School of Mental Health. So that's pretty much in a nutshell who I am.
Awesome. So you were nominated as a change maker for your work, not only in the mental health community, but really to help break down what you're doing to break down stereotypes and stigmas around mental health.
Yes.
And in speaking with you before we came on the air, I completely understand why. Can you share a little bit about what you shared with me regarding the stigmas, specifically with people of color around mental health and getting the help that they need?
Absolutely. So we talked about this a little earlier, but I'm just going to just go into it again. So yes, mental health is a stigma, period, around all cultures, all races, anyone. It's a stigma, but it's specifically a big stigma in the African-American community or people of color community. And so my passion, my assignment, my purpose here on this earth is to break down that stigma. And I'm going to actually narrow it down to not only break down the stigma in the African-American community, but break down the stigma in the African-American community when it comes to churches. Okay. And so my passion, my purpose is to go to churches, to train leadership, to train pastors, to train anybody who is willing to understand what mental health is, so that way we can get rid of the stigma and be able to be a holistic support to people who are in the church. Now, let's take it a step further here. So my vision, my plan also is to not only do that, that is the biggest piece of who I am, but there are so many other smaller parts to it that are just as equal to that same vision. And so the smaller parts to it is I've noticed as I have gone through graduate school that there was a underrepresentation of people of color in those classrooms. So majority would be Caucasian. And then we will have maybe a few people who were either African-American or Hispanic. I don't think I've ever had a class with someone who was of Asian descent or Native American descent. And so, or other racial ethnicities. And so when I talk about and when I think about that, I wonder, how are we supporting those communities? How are we supporting those communities? And so, like I was telling Jim, that it was very, very difficult to learn mental health from a perspective of from a Caucasian perspective, when most of my clients are most likely people who look just like me, people of color. And so the things that we were taught not to do were things that I needed to do in order to reach the people who I serve. And so being able to train people who are counselors or therapists to not only learn mental health, but also put in their culture and their values and their language and their body language and all those different things, that those unwritten rules of what we do and how we do it. And so when we put that into that space and we add it with the mental health piece, you have no choice but to reach people and help them through their issues. And so that is my goal. That is my goal, not only to reach the church and reach organizations who need support with understanding what mental health is, but to also reach people who are underserved people of color who need that support when it comes to mental health, and that they don't have to suffer in silence.
That's great, Lena. What do you think the impact, and we haven't discussed this, so I don't know that there's like a clearly defined answer, but what do you think the impact of failing to do what your mission is? What has that proven? How has that proven to be problematic in the past? And let me say it in a different way that kind of gets my point across. There's so many times where people will say, well, what we're doing works well enough. And obviously it's not. You know, there's more instances of fill in the blank as a result of mental health than ever in history. So clearly what we've been doing, it isn't working. So you're looking to make a change. But what do you think specifically your mission, your organization, your efforts, what do you think the impact will be specifically?
Okay. So when you think about mental health, you only probably just think about, talking about emotions and my problems, right? But do we know when we think about ourselves, we are physical, mental, and spiritual beings. And so when we are not mentally okay, it affects our physical. When we're not physically okay, it affects our spiritual. And so when we think about our mental piece, just look around. Look around each day when you're driving and you're at a stoplight and someone has one of those, I work for food, or if you can spare me $1 sign up, right? Or I'm a veteran and I'm disabled, right? And I'm homeless, I need food. If we supported people with mental health and resources and supported these people, I wonder how much impact we could make on the social economic status of a lot of people who are in poverty right now. Okay. And think about that too. When you're in poverty, there's a correlation between poverty and crime rate as well. So when we dive into the mental health piece, I wonder how that would affect the poverty piece and the crime piece and the health piece. So when we start educating on different areas, we tend to have that ripple effect. I like to call it the ice tray effect, where if you fill in one cube, it kind of spills over to the next one, into the next one, into the next one. So that is why mental health is so important, because it spills over into so many other areas. It's not a separate piece. It's a piece that's connected to everything else. So when you shift one piece, the other piece has no choice but to shift. So when you improve the mental health, the poverty rate will go down. When you shift mental health, maybe the unemployment rate will go down as well. If you shift mental health here, and we have the resources that we need, the crime rate will go down, because now I know how to communicate better, and I'm not being impulsive with my thinking. So it has no choice but to link over to other pieces.
Yeah, and I think you're so right. You know, people want to be able to relate to people that look like them, that sound like them, that have gone through what they go through. So I think your mission is very, I'm going to say pure is not the right word, but it's so important, because I wouldn't want to talk to somebody that doesn't look like me, or I don't think can relate to me and my unique struggles, because we all have struggles, right? Skin color, pigment has nothing to do with struggles. We all struggle in different ways. What makes this so important to you? There's obviously a driver behind this for you. So I'm curious what your trigger event was, or what happened to cause you to want to take this on?
So one of the things that has happened was last year, of course, because I'm a therapist, I do have a therapist. So it's something that not only do I preach, but I actually practice too, right? So I had a therapist, and she didn't look like me. Was she a good therapist? Absolutely. But I felt like I had to censor myself. I felt like I didn't want to offend, and some things that I really wanted to say, I couldn't say it in the vocabulary that I normally would say it. And I couldn't be authentically me. I had to feel guarded. I felt guarded. I felt like I still had to censor myself. So if I felt this way, imagine how many other people feel this way. And it's not a racial thing like, oh, I don't like white people. I don't like Black people. I don't like Asian people. It wasn't that type of thing, but it was a feeling of sense that I felt guarded. And I felt like in the one place that I need the support, I feel like I'm not getting the support I really need, because I don't feel like I can relax the way I need to and just say it how I normally would say it. And so even in my practice, I would hear this tone in people's voice. They go, are you Black? And I go, yeah. And this is like a phone call. If someone's calling are you Black? Yeah, I am. Okay, good, because I was looking for a Black therapist, but I know it sounds bad. I'm not racist or anything like that. And I'm like, no, you do not have to explain that, because I understand that sometimes when people look like you tend to be a little bit more comfortable with talking and expressing yourself, because it's like, I think you kind of understand, there's this understanding that you guys have. And so I hear it all the time. And so, and a lot of times when people come and sit on, I just need to talk to somebody who look like me. And I'm like, I understand, hun, that's okay. It's okay. And so that is why it's important. Lots of people need representation is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sad that that's even something you have to explain.
Yes.
It's like, and I don't know how else to describe it, but like if you're going to get a massage, you probably know if you want a male or female masseuse.
Exactly.
If you're going to the doctor, if you want a male or female doctor, especially certain types of doctors.
Oh boy.
So it's a normal thing, and you're giving people the option to make it a normal thing in their mental health, which I think is absolutely amazing. Yes. I'm honored to have you featured on Changemakers21. I have one final question for you that I want to let you take the last 30 seconds or so and just respond.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure there's a lot of people that are wanting to do something. I've asked the same question of every change maker we've talked to. Someone is going to be inspired by what you've said. Something's going to hit home, but maybe they don't have the resources. They don't have the education. They don't have the money. They don't have the background. They don't have the ability to do what you've done, but they want to do something. And they're like, I just need to do something. What is your words of wisdom, your 30 seconds of advice for those people that are wanting to get into action and maybe don't know how?
All right, here we go. So I got 30 seconds. Let's go. So change starts with you. Be the change that you want to see. Now, do you have to have all the money in the world to do it? No. But you just saying that, you know what? Let me do a scan over my life and see what areas of my life that I feel like I still need some healing from. And then go out there and get therapy, period. Once you heal yourself, when you start getting healed, then you tend to shift the environment that you're in. And then once you're transparent about it, more people say, oh, well, if you went, then that means I can go. Oh, if you got, oh, wow, look what it did for you. It's just that simple. And there's so many other resources out there where you can get free counseling. So it's not that you have to have money to do it. There's a lot of agencies that offer free counseling. Insurance can cover it, all types of things, sliding fee scales. So change starts with you. That's the easiest and the best way you can start, by saying, let me heal and let me go ahead and go to therapy so I can get the healing that I need. And then it just, like I said, the ice cube tray, it just trickles on to the next piece.
Yeah. And what is the name of your school that's in the process of forming right now?
Haven of Light School of Mental Health.
Awesome. Hopefully, and for those of you,
Haven of Light University. So yeah.
See, that's big dreams.
Yes.
So Lena, thank you so much for being featured on Changemakers, for being honored and nominated as a change maker. Congratulations to you. For those of you that are making a donation to Revitalize, if you feel like her story resonated with you, you can click her, and a portion of your donation to Revitalize will go to support her nonprofit and what she is doing. Always an honor to have you on here. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Guys, stay tuned. More Changemakers coming up right after this.
Beautiful. I loved her story. I did not get a chance to hear it when Jim did the interview, but Lena, you are really a beautiful individual and inspiring people and providing so much help. I mean, mental health is so important. I see like one of the comments, it's really like equally as important as physical health, because I mean, our mind processes so much, and our mind can help dictate how our body feels. So thank you for what you're doing. I also love the ice cube tray, the ice cube.
Great analogy.
Concept, the carryover. I'm definitely gonna, yeah.
Hashtag stolen.
That. Yeah.
That is great. Awesome. Well, Larry, we've got a lot more to come, and we've got 2 individuals left, both of whom have had a profound impact since I had a chance to sit down and chat with them. The first one is the creator of the Morning Sips. And Larry, you've done a little bit of research on the Morning Sips.
I have.
So I'll let you just kind of give the intro here, and then you can cue up the man himself.
So what inspired me about the Morning Sips is, here's a person that saw a need in the community, saw a need in his community. And again, didn't have to have the deep pockets, didn't have to have the money, but needed the spirit, the passion, the commitment, and the vision. And he created an online community called Morning Sips, where people could come together and talk about issues that are relevant to them and to a certain group of people. So that's what I'll share. We'll introduce Preston Martin. Jim?
All right, everybody, we are back. We're back again, this time with Preston Martin. How are you, Preston?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing great. We're live on Changemakers21, and I'm excited to have you on here. We received a nomination for you as a Changemaker, and I really hadn't heard of your organization. And when we did the pre-interview, I learned a little bit about you and your motivations for doing this. But could you share with our audience who don't know anything about you, who you are, your background, where you're from, and we'll kind of take it from there?
Yeah. So again, my name is Preston Martin. I'm originally from St. Louis, born and raised in the Normandy district. I am an architect by trade, architect and laboratory planner. And I'm actually located now in the Maryland DMV area. Grew up again in St. Louis and ended up getting my education from Tuskegee University with a Bachelor of Architecture and a Master in Historic Preservation from the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Excellent. So you're doing something now, really, I think, unique, especially where men are concerned. So you were nominated as a Changemaker because you host a show. And am I saying that right? Is it a show is the right way to frame it up? Say it.
I would say a gathering. We'll say
a gathering where a lot of people come together and have an opportunity to just talk openly. Share a little bit about your concept and how it's progressed over time.
Yeah. So we have an organization called the Morning Sips, and what we do on every other weekend, every other Saturday, we gather Black men together to have a conversation. So the premise behind it is that we are lacking in communication, and we want to create a safe space for particularly Black men to come together and talk. And it doesn't matter what we talk about. We're talking about sexuality. We're talking about discrimination. We're talking about finances. We're talking about investments. We're talking about so many different topics. But the whole premise is so that no one feels alone in their being. A little bit about that, I've gone through a time of depression, and I felt alone during that time. I don't think anyone really feels like they have anybody to run to or to have a conversation with, or really to know how to put into words what they're feeling. And one thing's for sure, that person is hurting. And I don't want anyone to feel like they're hurting by themselves or feel like they have to hurt alone. And so we're here to support. And it's not just me, there's others, Nas Yancey and Shaquan Howard and Darius Williams. We're all leading the cafes, and it's not a panel discussion. It's not a preaching or teaching. It is literally a conversation, and we're starting to see amazing results from that. No matter if it's one person or 50 people on the call, we're starting to see great things from it.
Wow, that's really incredible. And I want to go in. Let me bring myself back on screen here. Nope, that's not. There I am. I wanted to go into what your motivation was for this. And I think you touched on it a little bit, where you had gone through these periods or situations where things had happened to you that inspired you to do this. And if there's more to add to that, please do. But what I want to talk about is what you and I discussed in the pre-interview, where you said a couple different people reached out to you, and this was a major impact on their life. Can you touch on that for a little bit?
Yeah, you never really understand how much a conversation will change a person's life. And and somebody will say just giving a simple hello to someone may change that moment for them during the day. So for us, that's what a conversation is doing. And so what you're referencing is we had two guys that jumped on the call. And again, we just had a normal conversation like we typically do in our cafes. And after the call, these two guys, they basically told us that we kept them from, jumping off the deep end. We're not out to say we're heroes or saving lives, but the mere fact that we were able to do that for at least one guy, let alone others, and these are just the people that told us, Right. I think that speaks volumes of what communication can do. And it's, again, not just amongst this small group, but just in general. We don't have to walk around with a frown on our face. We don't have to walk around feeling secluded. This simple gesture to me speaks volumes. And, I think like I told you earlier, I got a little emotional about it, and it still choked me up, just the mere fact that somebody would even think like that. But the fact that we were able to keep them from going, that's everything to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you, and I've done a lot of these interviews for this event, and you just caused me to think of a question that I have never asked. So I'm kind of excited to throw this at you. But when you started this, what did you think was going to happen?
Not this. I'll be honest. I think, going in, I thought that this was just going to be another, opportunity to meet other people and just maybe even hang out with other folks. But nothing to the magnitude of changing a person's life or changing a person's mind or opening them up to opportunities that they never thought would happen. Even in these groups, there's networking opportunities for folks to find jobs, and they might hear something from someone talking, and they'll say, "Oh, wait, you're into that, or you're interested in that, or you have a degree in this, and let's get connected." And it just worked out perfectly. But never in a million years would I think that I would be in the middle of making change. I never saw myself as that person. I feel like I'm a very humble guy. Yes, I've been maybe in front of the crowds, in the band and performing and things like that, but nothing to the magnitude of changing someone's life.
And that's amazing. And, it's funny, when we opened up for nominations, you were sent to us almost immediately by the person that referred you. And she had incredible things to say about you. And this is really a group for men, and specifically men of color. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
So
We don't stray away from anyone else, but we focus on Black men because we know the communication lines are lacking.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Let me ask you this in the last minute or so that we have here, what are you hoping will happen with this group as it continues to grow and evolve?
That more change makers come out of it. I mean, we're seeing the enjoyment of life, and I think of all the guys that have been on the call and have, you know, given their time to it, we're seeing that they're spreading that love elsewhere, and we want that to continue to go not just locally, not just nationally. We want it to go global. You know, spread the love.
That's great, Preston. What again, let me give you just a couple more seconds to touch on your message. And what I mean by that is there are going to be people that feel inspired. And you already said one of the things that you hope from this is that more change makers emerge and find the strength to take action. But what advice would you have for someone that wants to do something, maybe doesn't feel like they can do exactly what you've done, but want to do something? What's your 15 seconds words of wisdom for them?
Just do it. It's really that simple. You may think that it's hard because you're thinking hard about it, but it's the simple things that make the difference. So just do it. Simple as that.
Awesome. Preston, how do people find you? How do they get in touch with you? How do they join the cafe? Share your information if you would.
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram at _ the Morning Sips, also on Facebook at Morning Sips. We are also, you can contact us through email at support@themorningsips.com, or you can personally email me, preston.t.martin@hotmail.com. And we're revamping our website, so be on the lookout for that. But you follow us on all social media, you can get in contact with us.
Awesome. Preston, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations on being in the inaugural class of the 2021 Changemakers. It's the first time we've done this as Revitalize, and I couldn't think of somebody better to be a part of the program. So thanks so much.
I appreciate you all. Thank you.
All right, guys, we've got more Changemakers coming up here in just a minute.
That was beautiful. I mean, what an inspiring young man. I'm really touched by the work he's doing, and you can just tell from the vibration coming through his voice what this means to him, and what it's meaning to the men he's serving in his community. It's absolutely beautiful to see that type of work, and he's just an example, Jim, and to everybody who's watching, of why this is so important. That for Jim and I to put this on, we've just been really, every day we talk about it, like how touched we are and how inspired we are, and how much more hope we have for mankind, for humanity, from hearing all these great stories. There's so much negativity out there today that just listening to these stories just shifts your mental consciousness. So thank you, Preston. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you to all the Changemakers.
Yeah, can I share something, Larry, that
Sure.
just it was really emotional watching what was happening when Preston was talking.
Mm-hmm.
So from Lena Chapman to Carol C.C. Miller, both two Changemakers, members of our board, Melissa Moe and Taylor Miller, and then a lot of, Preston's fans, S.G. Howard, Nasiansi, I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. Kimmy Taylor, just comment after comment after comment. You can tell the impact that man is having on people's lives. And what I thought was truly amazing is the mission of Revitalize is communities and unity. And, you can't make things happen overnight. But what you can do is you can make the shift start right now. And I think we saw before our very eyes, and I even made a comment in here, we saw communities uniting together, right? We saw Changemakers from different cities collaborating right there in the feed as Preston was talking. And that's really what we want. We want a united group of individuals that have the power to make things better, and not necessarily in the world, but in the neighborhood and on the block. And you can take it from there. But that's the beginning. That's the beginning of something amazing. And we just saw it happen, which was just really cool.
Yeah, last night we heard from a gentleman named Rich Todd who just, he helps shovel driveways for older people. He'll put in an air conditioner, fix a heater in the summer, the winter months. And he was so inspiring because he's like, it could just be the person across the street or the neighbor to the left of you or the neighbor to the right of you. So Jim, you're so correct in just saying, it just start on your block, just start where you are. And thank you so much to all these change makers for sharing your story and sharing your vision with the revitalized community tonight.
Yeah, before we go into our final speaker tonight, I want to just remind everyone that these change makers are on a mission, and it's up to us as the recipients of what they're doing, the beneficiaries of what they're doing, to support them. So we encourage you to go to arevitalizedworld.org/changemakers. And you'll have an opportunity to go on there and make a donation in support of Revitalize, in support of the Changemakers initiative. And that will be matched dollar for dollar up to $5,000 by Larry and myself. So we really want you to give what you can. A lot of these individuals are not nonprofits, and they don't have the ability to write these things off. By leveraging this platform and making a donation to Revitalize, we can help support them in their mission, and you get the tax write-off of donating to a 501c3. So I encourage you to please take action, just a little bit of action. What you found out from each of these change makers is you can do a little bit, and if everybody does a little bit, you get a lot of it. You know what I meant? But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are on to our final change maker for the evening, and then we'll give you the lineup for tomorrow. Larry, do you want to introduce him? Actually, want to introduce them. I got to be careful. She was not able to be on the interview, so it was just him on the interview, but the change makers are Kevin and Julie Moeller, and I'll let you cue them up.
Yeah, so I met Kevin at least once in a previous business that we were in together. And what inspired me about his story is he took something, a family member had a health issue, and he took that health issue and has been created a foundation and created a nonprofit, and now he's helping hundreds, if not thousands, of people with that same issue. So he took a situation and helped to change his community. And here's the interview.
All right, we're back. This time we're joined with Kevin Moeller. Kevin, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm blessed, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So I've known Kevin for going on a decade now, and just the things that he's doing now, and it's just amazing. But Kevin, we've got guests from all over the world, if we did this right, tuning in. So I know we got people from Melbourne, Australia that are watching, because we've got one of our big change makers is down there. But most of those people are going to have no idea who you are. So can you share a little bit about your background before we get started?
Sure. My background was pretty simple. Many years ago, I started in the construction industry and was working in residential construction, building large-scale custom-built houses here in South Alabama, where I live today. My dad actually has a 10th grade education. He worked in the environmental industry. My mom was a nurse and worked with children with bleeding disorders. And so when I was growing up, I wanted to become an architect and design and build unique houses. I don't know where that dream came from, but that was my plan many years ago. But God had different plans for me. As I started down that construction field and went to college, 15 credit hours a semester, 5 nights a week, getting all my basics done for an architecture degree, and work in construction during the daytime to support myself and keep the bills paid. Out of desperation, I started my first company to make some additional income. And that ramped up, and I fell in love with entrepreneurship. And many years later, my nephew got diagnosed with autism, which led us down this trail of figuring out what services we could find for him that were available across the country and even in other countries. And as we started to travel and figure that out, me being a business person at the time and my mom coming from the nursing background, we found so many different things that were available to the special needs community that were not local where we live in South Alabama. And even all across North America that we found, we didn't find any place that had them all under one location and one roof. And that's where we got excited about creating what we have today, which is the American Autism and Rehabilitation Center and our Foundation for Children with Special Needs. So that's basically a 14-year story, but that's my background and kind of what led us to where we are today.
That's great. And I knew, you know, when we talked about this, as we were talking about, you know, what the event was and why you were nominated. And, you know, in a lot of these, we received nominations from other people. For this one, you were my nomination. And one of the reasons why is because I only knew a glimpse of what you did, but I felt the passion as you told the story before. And I didn't remember all the details. I just remembered your face when you talked about it. And a lot of times our conversations were on the phone. So just like hearing you talk about what you were working on and why it was so important. And as we kind of talked about this, you shared some numbers, the different people that have been helped, the number of people that you employ, the overall impact that this has had on your local area. Can you share some of those stats, if you have them handy, about number of patients, things like that?
Sure. The ones that I have memorized, of course, I'd be glad to share. So we started the center 6 years ago. It was a dream to create a facility where a parent could take their child to one location and have a variety of services offered. And everything from diagnostician, counselors, psychologists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists, ABA therapists. We have a 10,000 square foot facility that has 72 doors on the inside. So you can almost get lost there. It's so large. And what we do is we take care of kids with autism, Asperger's, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, ADD, ADHD, sensory processing disorder. If they're special needs, all the way from a little infant to mid-20s, we can probably help them. In our first 12 months of opening in a very rural area, we did 10,611 patient visits for the year. And I want to share with you that our impact is huge, but it takes a village, right? We've heard that analogy all the time. And that's where we are with our center. We've never turned a profit in 6 years of being open. We have built other companies outside to provide a living for ourselves and to supplement what we need to for the autism center, because we have, you know, almost 40 medically trained individuals working there, some with PhDs, some with other certifications, depending on what division of therapy that we roll out. And we're making a massive impact on the community, but it comes with a massive sacrifice. And the reason why I say that is not from me. I'm talking about our team, and the undertaking of what we've put together is huge. It's needed everywhere, not just in the United States, but all over the world. A prototype like what we've built is needed, but it takes so much, the funding need is so massive. So for an example, if someone comes in and they have the highest paying insurance policy in the state of Alabama, and they come walking in our doors and they have the highest ticketed price therapy, we can bill $80 for that. So if there's a no-show, if there's a cancellation, we still have a 10,000 square foot building. We still have 40 people on payroll. We still have employee benefits. We still have insurance, appointment setting software, electronic medical record system. Heck, we have to provide toilet paper for 10,000 plus visits a year, right? So it's a huge undertaking to put something like this together. But that's what we're so excited about, is we look at those patient visits, 10,611 patient visits, our first 12 months, and that was 6 years ago. We've grown since then. So we are seeing a lot of people making a big impact in our local community, so much that people have moved here, their entire family here, just to be able to take their loved one to our facility here in rural South Alabama. So we're excited about the impact that we're making.
That's amazing, Kevin. And you've always been someone to go out there and go after it. You know, I've watched you do that with various businesses. You and I have worked on a project together in the past, and I've seen what you're capable of doing. I know that your nephew was an inspiration, but man, this was a big project. Why? I know you a little bit, so I probably know what you're going to say, but man, that's like, there's all in, and then there's like 72 A's and 144 L's in, and that's, you're like all in. So, well, why did you go after it so big?
Well, when we took my nephew, I say we, when my sister took my nephew to the local autism specialist and a diagnostician to be evaluated many, many years ago, what he left with her was devastating. He gave her a list of things that my nephew would never do, gave her a list of things that she would hear about and said and discouraged her from ever trying, things like gluten-free diets and things like different therapies past the age of 3 years old. And it was devastating to her. And we just didn't believe that there was nothing we could do. We believed that there was something we could do. Even if it didn't work, we were going to try. And that's where we had our open mind and started expanding the country. And when we found different things and applied it to my nephew, and it started to work, he started to do things they said he would never do. He started to expand his vocabulary far beyond what they ever said he would do. He started to sleep throughout the night without waking up and banging his head against a wall like he used to do. He completely changed. And when that happened, we said, there's other children out there that need this, not just my nephew. And there's nowhere that they can go to get everything that we know about. Even my own nephew can't go to one location to get everything that we're talking about. I mean, we were flying him to South Florida, and we live in Alabama. So that's a good little ways away just to see a specialist down there. Had another one in California that we worked with. Long story short, we felt called. We felt inspired spiritually to provide this for other people. And it just made me think to myself, which fits very well with this conference and what you put together, Jim and Larry, is if there's going to be a difference that needs to be made, who's going to make it? And it's up to us. And when we had that idea for that center, we thought, well, who's going to make this possible? And if it's not us, who's going to do it? And that's where we felt inspired and called, and it was a calling. And that's the reason why we took this undertaking. We believed spiritually we weren't doing it alone. We believed that we were guided by a higher power, and we submitted to that. And we're here 6 years later.
Wow. So the one thing I will say is so many people wait until they have everything figured out. And, you and I have joked about this. You don't have to figure it out to get started. You just have to start, and then you can figure it out. And, every successful person has a similar story. But, man, what you have done for your community is truly amazing. And I really don't know that there's much better example of what a change maker is than you and Julie and what you guys have put together. So congratulations on your success.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I believe we have a long way to go. We've come a long way, and you're absolutely right. They say that being an entrepreneur or a change maker in this circumstance is jumping off of a cliff and building wings on the way down. That's very much what it's like, is you just take off and figure out how to build your wings as you're running and falling. And you're going to get bumped, you're going to get scratched, you're going to get bruised. But you know what? It's the people that decide to make a change that make changes. And that's what we decided to do, was to be the change that we wanted to see in the world. And we have a long way to go. We have huge plans for the future. We have new services we're rolling out as we speak. So we're not stagnant. We've made a big impact, which feels great, but nothing in comparison to where we're going, which is exciting. And that's the reason why I'm excited to be part of this conference with you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give you the last 30 seconds as we end this, but one of my favorite quotes ever, and I've said it already on our show, is a quote by Margaret Mead, and I'm gonna butcher it up. It's never doubt that a group of committed citizens can change the world. In fact, they're the only ones that ever have. So congrats, my friend. Tell people how they can get a hold of you, and if there's a way to support you financially, can you share that information as well?
Sure. So you can visit AmericanAutismCenter.org. That's our nonprofit. Right now, we're raising money to replace our playground that got destroyed by the hurricane. So hurricane came through the facility. We had a nice playground, a therapeutic playground for the children of the Autism Center, and the hurricane took that away and destroyed the fence that we had just built in this beautiful playground. So we're raising funds for that. But you can go to AmericanAutismCenter.com is our actual center. And .org is the foundation where we raise money for different causes, that being one of the most recent that we're working on. And you can find me anywhere that you Google Kevin Mohler, Mohler. You can find me on any social media channel. By the way, I manage my own social media. So if you send me a direct message, I will get it, and I will be the one that responds to you personally. So you can find me any social media platform, pretty much I'm on there.
That's great. And for those of you that are maybe just tuning in and have heard Kevin's story, and it's the first part of the Changemakers21 event that you've heard of. When you go to our website, arevitalizedworld.org, and you make a donation to Revitalize through Changemakers, you have an opportunity to select a beneficiary that will share in part of that donation. And you can choose the American Autism Center. You can choose Kevin Muller and his family and the organization that they've put together to receive a portion of the donation. Kevin, as we close out, there's going to be a lot of people that heard your story and feel inspired. And, you know, we always talk about if you light yourself on fire with enthusiasm, people will come from miles around just to watch you burn. A lot of my friends and mentors have said that, and a lot of our shared mentors have said it in the past. But what are your parting words of wisdom for those that feel like they want to do something but couldn't even fathom doing what you've done, but just want to do something? What are your words of advice as we close out this segment?
Sure. Well, I believe that Richard Branson said it really well one day at a conference that I was blessed to be able to see him speak in person. And he said that if everybody would take on a cause, a mission, or a problem that they have the ability to solve. For some people, it's in their own home. You have an impact that you can make in your own home, which your home has individuals that can make an impact in their respective lives. But make an impact in your home. And if you have the ability to solve something, an issue, a problem, or an opportunity in your neighborhood, then take it on. And if you can do it for your city, do it for your city. And if you can do it for your state, do it for your state. If you can do it for your country, do it for your country. And if you can take on an issue and help the entire world, then you should take it on. And if we all take what we're able to do and capable to do, no matter how scared we may be, no matter how uncertain of the future we may be, maybe we've had failures in the past that we're dragging forward in today's current circumstance and thinking, man, I don't know if I can make this happen. If it's something that you have the ability to do, I believe the word responsibility is the ability to respond. If you have the ability to respond, you should take on that mission to do the best that you can do. And at the end of the day, you can hold your head up high that you attempted what was possible. And what better life lived than to actually take on a cause and something that you're passionate about and to do your best. And when you do that, you will rally other people around your cause, and anything is possible. So start where you are, whether that's in your home or whether that's solving a global issue. Start where you're at, what you're capable of doing, rally that cause, and I promise you, you will never be disappointed for at least attempting to make a difference in the world.
Mr. Muller, it is always an honor to speak with you and to hear you speak. So thanks for being here. Congratulations again.
Likewise, Jim. Thanks so much, you and Larry, for putting this amazing conference together. I appreciate you both.
Awesome. We're going to be back with more Changemakers. Stay tuned. And we're going to go right back to Mr. Larry Cohn. Larry, take us away.
Beautiful, Kevin. I mean, just another incredibly inspirational story, and what a fantastic way to conclude night number 2 of the 3-night series of Changemakers. I had to take a note, so I'm just going to read this from my note, but I love what you wrote. If there's a difference that needs to be made, who's going to make it? And, you know, you look to yourself. I love the way you defined responsibility, and that's the ability to respond. So you certainly have done that, and I know that through tonight, you have inspired so many others to do that. So thank you, Kevin and Julie Muller.
Yeah, and it's funny because you can hear me, right? I just need to make sure now.
Yes.
Okay. It's fine. It's totally fine. You know, we've watched Kevin in his evolution, and we've watched Julie, and what Kevin really didn't get a chance to go into is Julie was really sick for a while, and that is part of the motivation for him to make sure that people have options. And she's doing great right now. What an amazing evening tonight was. And tomorrow, I mean, we have some incredible people. And Larry, I've shared with you on the right there in the chat, the list of the people that will be on here tomorrow night. And we'll just start with the beginning. And
I don't see anything in the chat.
It says host chat. You got to click on host chat.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jim.
Technology.
Right.
So the first person that we're going to be talking to tomorrow night is a guy by the name of Kevin Butterfield. And Kevin shares a story of the something that happened to him in third grade that changed his life. And now he's working on creating and has been instrumental in helping people with a technology that has led to suicide prevention, has led to advances in autism and ADD, ADHD, PTSD, a series of things. He's actively involved in the Indy and NASCAR scene to make sure that drivers are safer when they crash, because that's inevitably a part of that. So Kevin Butterfield is going to be an amazing guest. Larry, do you want me to keep going, or you want to take the next one?
We have Joseph Luckett, and I was lucky enough to hear his interview. An amazing young man, one of 17 children, overcame like a really challenging background. He is the first African-American international bestseller from his hometown. He also is the first African-American ever to receive a key to his hometown. And
yeah, in like 250 years. So the first African-American. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and he's developed some key concept business models and really gives back to his community. So we'll be listening to him. And then Jim, I know that the next one, you said she is just a dynamo. So I can't wait to hear her interview. Do you want to share a little bit about Darlicia?
Yeah, so she is the CEO of The Fervent Servant. She is energy. You can feel it through the screen. It's really crazy. She's a national speaker, an accomplished author. She labels herself the hope dealer. And when you hear her story, you'll understand exactly why. That's Darlicia Menzi.
And then we have Kevin Lee, who is from St. Louis. And again, just another phenomenal story, but he's a teacher, he's an advocate. He is the co-founder of a organization called The Hidden Gem and Stomp the World. He teaches dance and he gives so much back to his community, specifically the children. And then we also have a gentleman from St. Louis too, who's really near and dear to Jim and has been involved in fast. C Sharp is his name, and you got to hear his story. He is just again an example of a change maker that gives from his spirit, his soul. Doesn't have anything or doesn't have much to give from his pocket, but he gives so much to the community. He really puts himself out there on the line, and you'll clearly want to hear his story. And do you want to share a little bit about Nick?
Well,
Jim?
let me just a little bit more on C Sharp. So he was the youth ambassador for the city of St. Louis. He wrote the rap single of the year as recognized by the city of St. Louis at a time when our city, our hometown, was in turmoil because of the situation with Mike Brown. And he wrote a song called "Put the Pistols Down," and it received some pretty impressive attention, definitely locally here, but nationally. And just an amazing guy. And for someone that doesn't have a lot to give from his pocketbooks, he sure finds a way. The next gentleman is Coach Nick Atkins. Nick was one of the people that, as we put on Streamathon and we put on the Small Business Independence Day, and now when we put Changemakers, he was a trusted advisor in helping us find those people in the community that were making a difference for others. And just the amount of time that he dedicated to this initiative alone made him a clear nominee for Changemakers21. So
That's
you want me to go to
fantastic.
the next one, or you want to?
I do. No, I do not know Michael.
Yeah, so Michael Robinson, also from St. Louis, he received word on an early afternoon in February that the largest shelter in the city of St. Louis had closed, really unannounced. And that afternoon, he opened now the largest shelter in the city of St. Louis with no planning, no preparation, bought a ton of spaghetti and fed a bunch of people that otherwise probably would have frozen to death in the coldest stretch in St. Louis history back a couple Februarys ago. And just an amazing guy. And then the next one, I know you know, Larry.
Yeah, his name is Nadav Sprague, and he has founded an organization called Gateway to the Great Outdoors. And it's an incredible organization. And he's just a really inspiring young man. And Gateway to the Great Outdoors takes youth in the inner city. They work in St. Louis and they work in Chicago. And they just give them experiences out into rural areas, out into the country, and to gain, a relevance and a knowledge of what it's like to be with the land and learn from the land that you don't have that opportunity in the inner city.
Yeah, and I think even more than that, let me just comment on that real quickly, because one of the things he talked about, and you'll hear in the interview, and it was probably one of the most shocking things I've heard, and just an example of we all need to be really grateful for what we have. He said one of the most shocking experiences he had was when one of the children that he took out on this excursion had lettuce for the first time in their life, and had seen lettuce for the first time in their life, not on TV. So just a little perspective for everybody watching, that is a change-making individual.
That is.
Do you want me to take the next one?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Perfect. So Dr. Ronika Thomas, she is the founder of Blacks and Nonprofits, and just an amazing lady. In the very short time that her organization has been in existence, has helped more than 22,000 nonprofits from every single inhabitable continent. And so that's an amazing feat in and of itself. She's working with Les Brown on a project and some other things. So she is the change. She's helping other people make the change. And she is, by definition, a change maker.
Sure is. Sounds like a great lineup for tomorrow. So yeah. I hope you'll join us.
We got 2 more.
Oh, okay.
You got to scroll down, Larry.
I do. I was wondering what happened to the next 2.
You want to take one of them? You pick.
Yeah. So I will take, we have Mish Shepherd, and this is an amazing woman. She lives in Melbourne, Australia, originally from St. Louis. And she began life as Danny Shepherd, and now she's
Danny Beaver.
Oh, sorry, Danny Beaver. And now she's Michelle Shepherd, and the journey that she's been through, and just it really is touching, and how she's now giving back and paving the way for others is a wonderful story.
Yeah, she is a nationally recognized advocate in the LGBTQ community, recognized by MTV a couple of different times for her work in the space, hosts a couple of radio shows, and just an amazing champion for awareness. And the best part about her is she's completely down to earth. So if you have a question, you can ask her anything. Trust me, I have. So there's so many great things about her. I'm really excited to be speaking with her and sharing that interview tomorrow night. And then the last one is a gentleman by the name of Clark Flatt, founder of the Jason Foundation. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the organization, if you watch Changemakers21 on the first night, Tuesday night, you heard of a gentleman named Larry Kindbaum. And Larry Kindbaum actually introduced us to Clark Flatt because it was a charity that he became actively involved with. But the Jason Foundation, Jason was Clark's son, who at the age of 16 took his own life with no foreseeable warning, none of the traditional signs that you would expect for someone that was going to commit suicide. And Clark has now created the largest organization in the world, educating all of us on teenage and childhood suicide. And one statistic that blew me away, and when you hear this, I have a 10-year-old son. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for children aged 10 to 14. And when I was 10 to 14, I was playing with wrestling figures and Hot Wheels, and not 14, but you get the idea. I didn't even think about those types of things. And Clark is bringing an awareness to a problem that is impacting people all over the world. So I'm really excited to share that with you as well. And Larry, I will let you kind of cue us up as we head out. Just a recap of what else will be on tomorrow. Don't forget to share, and I'll just give you the teaser, the matching donation that we're doing, and the big announcement regarding what's going to happen with the Changemakers going forward, and how people are going to hear about the remaining 33 Changemakers. I had to think about it.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed tonight, I just encourage everybody to share the website, share the link, share the Eventbrite link, so that more folks can come on and listen to stories of changemakers and really get some positive, some positive feedback to what's going on in communities nationwide. We are so humbled to be a part of this and to present this as the Jim and Larry team. And our organization, A Revitalized World. We're contributing through Jim and Larry up to $5,000 in matching funds to anyone who would like to make a contribution to Revitalize, and you can steer your contribution to the Changemaker who you felt had the biggest impact. So thank you for being with us tonight. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Thank you to all the honorees, and thank you to you. Have a great evening. Thanks so much for watching.